Chapter 1006. They had been asking around for an entire day and had asked everything they could. However, whenever the words Imperial Mausoleum were mentioned, everyone's rebellious nature would be aroused. No one was willing to answer their questions directly. Qin Yining felt that even if they stayed in the county for the night, they wouldn't be able to find out anything by using the same method the next day. Compared to not being able to find out anything and wasting a day, this beggar who made him feel that something was amiss was more important. Some people said that he was a murderer, but she didn't care. She had never met him before. She only saw the humiliation he was suffering right now. Since she couldn't stand it, she might as well save him. If she found out in the future that he was really a person who committed all kinds of crimes, it wouldn't be too late to punish him then. Thinking of this, Qin Yining gestured to Jing Zhe and the others. Jing Zhe immediately understood and told Da Han and young man, help this little brother onto the cart first. Then, he and Xiao Shui protected Qin Yining and Ji Yun as they retreated. When the villagers and the old man saw the situation, they all widened their eyes in disbelief. What are you trying to do? Don't tell me you want to secretly take this person away. Young man and Da Han didn't care about the other party's shouts. They helped the beggar onto the cart and drove away. Who would have thought that the commoners who had gathered together would block the road? Everyone pointed at Qin Yining and his group and cursed with indignation. Who do you think you are? How dare you meddle in our county's affairs? I didn't expect you to repay kindness with enmity after I allowed you to do business out of pity. Qin Yining realized that these villagers had some ignorant thoughts. They must have been sheltered by their families for a long time, so they valued their family rules and self-righteous rules more than the laws of the country. Qin Yining knew that he shouldn't deal with these people who weren't evil and were just mediocre people. If he wasn't careful, these people could easily swarm him. Qin Yining immediately said, Jing Zhe. Jing Zhe immediately understood and turned around to kick a thick tree by the side of the road. The tree trunk made a catcher sound, and the tree crown slowly fell down. Ah! Get out of the way, he's down. I'm afraid this person is a monster. How can he break a tree with one kick? The men who were about to rush forward were all stunned by this sudden movement. What kind of leg strength was this? The commoners nearby were afraid that they would be smashed and fled in all directions. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Qin Yining and Ji Yun boarded the carriage. Jing Zhe and the others drove their own carriages and rushed out of the crowd. Pang Xiao had prepared a driving shaft and harness for Qin Yining. Although these horses weren't famous stallions, they were all well trained. When their four hooves galloped, ordinary horses couldn't catch up, let alone humans. These horses pulled the carriages and rampaged. The commoners didn't dare to stop them and could only scatter in all directions. The commoners avoided them while cursing. They are simply bandits. They are the same as that evil spirit with the surname Yun. Yes, they're all unreasonable. They'll beat this merchant to death. The elder was so angry that he beat his chest and stamped his feet. He shouted loudly, quick, chase after them. Don't let them escape. Some of the strong men nearby immediately went to find horses. Qin Yining's carriage had traveled some distance and could clearly hear the commotion in the crowd. When these people mentioned Pang Xiao, they didn't speak in a tone of respect for a hero, but as if they were an enemy. When Qin Yining was in the capital, he was already used to Pang Xiao being praised, worshipped, and looked up to by others. Now that the people of a county had a bad impression of Pang Xiao, Qin Yining concluded that someone must have done something behind the scenes to make Pang Xiao give people such an evil impression. Unfortunately, these people's ordinary horses were no match for them. When their horses reached the city gate, Qin Yining's 3 carriages had already rushed out of the city gate. Qin Yining sat in the carriage and grabbed the window frame tightly. The window screen and door curtains were lifted by the carriage speed. She and Ji Yun barely managed to stabilize their bodies and prevent themselves from hitting their heads. The other 2 carriages followed closely behind. At this time, the child beggar was hugging the bamboo stick and half lying on the goods. His left hand that could still be used struggled to hold on to the edge of the carriage, afraid that he would be thrown out and fall to his death. Qin Yining loudly ordered the people behind, "Don't stop. The people here are united and their customs are valiant. If we stop easily, It is very likely that they will chase after us. At that time, if we are surrounded by a sea of people, our chances of winning will be very small. Let's take advantage of this opportunity to increase the distance between us and them so that they won't be able to catch up. Jingzhe loudly replied, yes. Then, he turned around to tell the other three. The few of them were very obedient to Qin Yining and trusted her very much. Naturally, they would do whatever she said. The 3 carriages rushed forward and the horses chasing after them were left far behind. When the people of Danfu County wanted to chase after them, Qin Yining's group had already disappeared from the road. At first glance, I can tell that the merchant woman is not a good person. She must be the same as Prince Zhongshuren. They both don't care about the lives of the people. One is a treacherous official, the other is a treacherous merchant. We shouldn't have let them enter the city. The group of people dispersed while cursing. However, Qin Yining did not dare to relax and continued to urge the group to move forward. When they left the city, it was already dusk. When Qin Yining's group confirmed that it was safe and stopped the carriages by the side of the road, it was already night time. Qin Yining helplessly said, let's set up camp here tonight. Yes. Jingzhe and the others got off the carriage and quickly got to work. As for the child beggar, he clumsily got off the carriage and hugged a bamboo stick as he squatted in the corner behind the carriage. His eyes were exceptionally bright in the dark night as he stared unblinkingly at Qin Yining. Only then did Qin Yining remember that she had forgotten to wear her veil hat when she got off the carriage. However, there were so many people around her and the child beggar was thin and pitiful. She was not afraid of anything. Soon, there was a pile of work in front of her. The few of them sat around the bonfire and roasted the dry rations on the tree branches. Qin Yining said, since we have already come out today, there is no need to think too much. Let that young man come and eat with us. I think he is hungrier than us. Yes. Ji Yun got up and went to the back of the carriage to call for him. Because it was Ji Yun who gave this child the bread and money in the city, she was confident that she would not cause this person to be afraid if she went to look for him. When the beggar saw Ji Yun gesturing for him to come over, he did not refuse as Yu Yi expected. Instead, he stood up and limped over with the help of the bamboo stick. As he walked, his broken arm was still swaying. Qin Yining saw that he was very pitiful and handed the tree branch in her hand to Jingzhe to pass it to the child beggar. The child beggar took the bread and was not afraid of the heat. He wolfed it down. He was not like ordinary beggars who knew how to beg or express their gratitude. This person was like a savage who came from the mountains. He did not know these etiquette at all and only ate the bread while looking at Qin Yining opposite him. Qin Yining said helplessly, "Can you hear me?" He did not respond and continued to eat the bread. It seemed that those people who said that this person was deaf and mute were not lying. She took a tree branch and wrote on the ground to see if this person could read. However, when the beggar looked at the tree branch on the ground, he slowly shook his head while eating the bread. Then, he lowered his head like a child who had made a mistake. He could not hear, could not speak, and could not read. The only way they could communicate was by gesturing with their hands and using their eyes. Therefore, it was very difficult for them to communicate. Qin Yining originally felt that there was something strange about this person's murder and wanted to ask for some clues. However, she could only give up and turn to tell Jingzhe, "Did we bring the medicine? There are some ready-made clothes, shoes, and socks in the carriage. It doesn't matter what material they are made of. First, find a suitable one for him to wear. Later, take him to wash up and see if there are any other injuries on his body. Apply some simple medicine on him." Yes. Jingzhe looked at the child beggar and asked, "Madam, how do you plan to settle him?" Qin Yining lowered her eyes and thought for a while, then said, "It's not convenient for me to take him with me. Tomorrow morning, let's see where Jishi's group is. When the time comes, I will bring some people to meet up with Jishi. You arrange for someone to take this little brother to Huichuan County to find Hall Master Liao. Ask him to send this little brother to the nearest village to treat his illness. After he is cured, leave him to farm. At least he won't be reduced to a beggar. At least he will have food to eat." Jingzhe sighed, "Madam is a kind person. If everyone in the world could meet a kind person like Madam when they are in trouble, It would be great. Qin Yining smiled bitterly and shook her head. She knew that Jingzhe was thinking about their childhood. The silver-masked secret agents were able to have such great abilities because of the cruel training they went through. These people must have been trained from a young age and must have experienced a lot of inhuman abuse. If they had the ability, who would be willing to suffer that kind of torture? It was just like when she was forced to hide in the mountains. It wasn't that she liked the mountains, but that she had no other choice. Qin Yining gestured to the child beggar. Later, ask them to wash your wounds and apply medicine for you. I will ask them to send you to my village. When you get there, take care of your body first. Someone will arrange work for you so that you won't starve in the future. Qin Yining spoke very slowly because she was afraid that the child wouldn't understand, so she coordinated with the movements of her hands. She originally thought that this would be another failed communication, but who would have thought that the child would actually obediently nod his head? Qin Yining was a little surprised, but then she couldn't help but laugh. She had underestimated this person. It was good that he could understand her gestures. In the future, he might be able to use this method to communicate with others in the village. Qin Yining and Ji Yun entered the tent to rest. Xiao Shui and the others surrounded the bonfire and guarded Qin Yining's tent. They didn't dare to slack off at all. Jingzhe personally took the child beggar to bathe and apply medicine. He even found a set of dark blue cotton clothes and shoes for him to change into. When he returned, Xiao Shui and the others were a little surprised to see him. Chapter 1007. The young man looked to be in his early 20s. Perhaps he had been abused by the people of Danfu County all year round and had been fed pig food and dog food. At this moment, he was as thin as a match. His delicate cheeks were sunken, and his eye sockets were deeply sunken. He looked very pitiful. He returned to the bonfire. Without knowing any etiquette, he sat down with a bamboo stick in his arms. One of his broken legs was stretched out, and his broken right arm was bandaged by Jingzhe. At this moment, his arm was in a sling with a piece of cloth. Xiao Shui and the others asked Jingzhe, "How's his injury?" Jingzhe sat down. Since he was deaf and mute, he did not hide his words. His arm and leg were broken by someone. His leg is fine. Perhaps the bone has been broken for a long time, and it slowly healed on its own. Although the recovery is not good and it's a little crooked, at least it won't affect him too much. He just walks with a slight limp. His arm, however, is completely broken. The bones inside are broken, and it's only connected by the skin and flesh outside. I just set his bones and found a tree branch to bandage and fix it. I think we should find a doctor to take a good look at him after we go to leader Liao. Xiao Shui and the others nodded and looked at the young man sympathetically. Jingzhe asked again, "Madam, are you resting?" "Yes." "Then let's take turns to keep watch. Let's all rest. We still have to meet up with Master tomorrow." "Okay." After the four of them finished their discussion, they all went to rest. Early the next morning, Qin Yining and Ji Yun dressed neatly and came out of the tent with handkerchiefs, green salt, and other things. They saw the young man curled up next to the bonfire. Perhaps the young man heard the footsteps, but he suddenly opened his eyes in alarm. The moment he opened his eyes, there was a vigilance and fierceness in them, like a disturbed beast. But when he saw that the person who made the sound was Qin Yining, his fierceness quickly disappeared. He lowered his eyes and head and nodded at Qin Yining. Qin Yining smiled and held hands with Ji Yun as they went to wash up. After everything was settled, they returned to the campsite and had a simple breakfast. Jingzhe arranged for Xiao Han to inquire about Pang Xiao's whereabouts and told Xiao Shui to send the young man to leader Liao. Qin Yining took out several banknotes worth 10 taels each and handed them to the young man. He gestured to him and said, "This is for you. When we arrive at my manor, have them find a physician to treat your injuries." The young man held the banknotes and looked at Qin Yining in confusion. Qin Yining gestured with his hands and imitated the way a doctor would treat a patient. Only then did the young man completely understand. He looked at Qin Yining and slowly lowered his head with the banknotes in hand. Qin Yining knew that this person did not know much about etiquette and did not mind. He turned to instruct Xiao Shui, "Be careful. When we arrive at Huichuan, don't rush over. Wang Yi and I will return in a few days. Xiao Shui acknowledged and went to prepare the horses. Not long after, Xiao Han, who had been investigating the whereabouts of Pang Xiao's group, returned. Madam, what a coincidence. Master's group is stationed on the other road. If we go that way, we will meet them in less than 2 incense sticks worth of time. Qin Yining was surprised, it's actually so close. If we had taken a different road yesterday, we would have met them. Yes. Qin Yining was very happy. At this time, the campsite had been cleaned and the fire had been dealt with. Qin Yining and Ji Yun boarded the carriage. Jing Zhe and the others each drove a carriage. Xiao Shui led the 2 horses and carried the bundle. She pulled the young man to the side of the road and watched Qin Yining's group leave. The young man looked in the direction the carriage left. He tightened his grip on the banknotes and pursed his light-colored lips. Xiao Shui smiled and said, "Let's go. Let's set off too." The young man clumsily got on the horse with Xiao Shui's help. Pang Xiao's group was stationed not far away. In addition, Xiao Han had been here earlier and knew that Qin Yining was not far away. Pang Xiao was not in a hurry to leave the camp and waited for Qin Yining to arrive. Not long after, Qin Yining's group arrived. Tang Xiu and the others saw Qin Yining's group approaching from afar. They smiled and went forward to welcome them. Someone also quickly went inside to pass the message. Qin Yining got off the carriage and saw Pang Xiao striding out of the tent. He was wearing a white brocade robe and a jade belt around his waist. He had the noble aura of a prince. It was impossible to tell that this person was a leader. He had deliberately dressed like this to show off his status. Xie Yu and Xu Weiji followed behind Pang Xiao. When they saw Qin Yining, they bowed. Qin Yining hurriedly avoided them and said with a smile, "Gentlemen, please don't be like this." Pang Xiao walked closer and said with concern, "I estimated that you would only be back tomorrow or the day after. I asked the group to slow down. Why are you back so soon? Did something happen?" Qin Yining nodded and said with a serious expression, "There are some things. Let's go in and talk." Seeing Qin Yining's expression, everyone knew that something was wrong. They entered the tent and sat down according to their status. Qin Yining told them what he saw and heard in Danfu County, including how he escaped with the young man and how he settled the young man down. In the end, he concluded, the people of Danfu County are simple and ignorant. Perhaps it is because of the influence of the 3 large clans, but their actions are more or less barbaric. They seem to have a deep misunderstanding of the imperial court and don't care about etiquette. They are only willing to believe the words of the elders of the large clans. In addition, they must have misunderstood you, Prince Zhongshuren. Xie Yu and Xu Weiji couldn't help but have a serious expression when they heard this. The situation is not good. I don't know what misunderstanding these people have. They actually treat Wang Yi as a scourge. The reason why the people here are not willing to gather in Huichuan County must be related to this misunderstanding. If this is really the case, then it is really not good. That's right. Wang Yi has never done anything wrong to the people. Where did their misunderstanding come from? Qin Yining said, "I am also very puzzled. However, when that happened, it was not good for me to stay there. I only wanted to talk about it when we went there. Also, I accidentally exposed my face. When we go back to Danfu County, I have to dress up properly so that no one can recognize me." Pang Xiao patted Qin Yining's cheek, "Don't worry about that. Those people won't dare to stare at you. Moreover, when we go to Danfu County, if you dress more luxuriously and change your makeup, there will be a big difference between you and your bare face. They won't recognize you. Moreover, even if they recognize you, they are just ordinary people. What can they say?" "That's true," Qin Yining said with relief. "I was too nervous and wanted everything to be perfect. However, at that time, it was also because of my negligence that I didn't care about wearing a veil hat." Pang Xiao smiled and shook his head. "The information you obtained is already very useful. At least we know how the people of Danfu County feel about me. I just don't know how I provoked their anger. I actually made these people hate me so much. I'm afraid this is something we need to investigate." Xie Yu said, In this old man's opinion, we should set off immediately and find out what Magistrate Cheng's opinion is. This person has a close relationship with the Lu family. I feel like we can get some clues from him. Pang Xiao agreed. Teacher Xie is right. Let's break camp and set off later. Yes. Everyone nodded in agreement. Qin Yining and Ji Yun went to Pang Xiao's tent to change into a luxurious aqua blue dress. Their long hair was tied up high and fixed with a silver flower hairpin. Qin Yining felt that this was too solemn, so he put on a pearl headband and a white jade bracelet. Not only would it not break the rules of filial piety, but it also showed his noble status at a glance. She slightly changed the shape of her eyebrows, tilted the ends of her eyebrows, and put on lipstick made of red peony flower on her lips. Her entire complexion improved, and she looked completely different from her appearance when she was traveling as a merchant. Ji Yun also changed back into her usual attire. After helping Qin Yining out, Pang Xiao had people tidy up the tent and then boarded the same carriage as Qin Yining. The prince's trip was intentional, so it naturally caused a huge commotion. Other than Jinghu Wei, Pang Xiao also brought dozens of guards from the prince's residence. Several carriages were lined up in a row. The carriages were escorted by Jinghu Wei, and the prince's residence guards followed behind the carriages. The journey was very smooth. In the afternoon, the group was already close to Danfu County. Pang Xiao arranged for someone to inform Magistrate Cheng in the city, while the rest of the people rested in place. After 2 hours, the city gates opened. Tang Xiu said in a low voice, "Wang Yi, the people in the city have come out to welcome you." Pang Xiao lifted the curtain of the carriage, and Qin Yining also leaned out to take a look. They saw that the city gates were crowded with people, and the commoners were all squeezing to take a look outside. Pang Xiao chuckled. This Magistrate Cheng can be considered to be good at managing his subordinates. In just 2 hours, he was able to mobilize the people in the city to welcome us. It can be seen that Magistrate Cheng is very influential. Qin Yining smiled. That's why he was able to mobilize the people for this matter, but not for the construction of the imperial mausoleum and the recruitment of laborers. It's hard to say who is behind this. As they spoke, the commoners in the city began to stir. Soon after, bailiffs came from behind the crowd. The commoners parted to the sides like Moses parting the sea, and a group of people quickly walked out from the city. The man at the front was about 20 years old, of medium build, and had a scholarly appearance. He was a typical white-faced scholar. He wore a green official's robe with a yellow aureole patch on his chest. As he walked, he gradually revealed a smile and respectfully bowed. Danfu County Magistrate Cheng Jun, along with my county's magistrate and elder, have come to welcome Prince Zhongshiren. Magistrate Cheng reported his name and then respectfully bowed. The county's magistrate, advisor, elder, and commoners behind him all bowed and said in a loud voice, "Long live Wang Yi! Long live Wang Yi!" Pang Xiao and Qin Yining looked at each other and then got off the carriage first. They went forward with a smile to help him. "Magistrate Cheng, don't be so courteous. Everyone, please rise." Qin Yining got off the carriage and slowly walked behind Pang Xiao with Ji Yun's help and the accompaniment of the guards. Magistrate Cheng respectfully gave his thanks. When he raised his eyes and saw Qin Yining, he immediately bowed again. "Greetings to Wang Fei." Qin Yining smiled warmly. No need for formalities. When they came closer, Qin Yining detected a familiar face among the elders behind Magistrate Cheng. It was the elder who had a conflict with her on the street yesterday. Qin Yining's expression did not change as she stood with lowered eyes. She vividly displayed the nobility and dignity of a Wang Fei. Chapter 1008. County Magistrate Cheng said politely, "When the people heard of Wang Yi's arrival, they immediately led the people out to welcome you. The people of this county all admire Prince's character, and deeply admire Prince's illustrious military exploits. Today, they all came spontaneously, wanting to see Prince's glory. The situation in front of the city gate is a bit chaotic. I hope Prince won't take offense." "Not at all." Pang Xiao was slightly moved as she said, "This king has only done what he should have done. If we are talking about military exploits, how can this king's exploits be greater? This king has only listened to your Majesty's orders." Everything was done according to your Majesty's orders. County Magistrate Cheng immediately said with admiration, Prince Zhengshuren is truly a loyal person. This lowly official was too one-sided. Please. As he spoke, he moved to the side and made a gesture of invitation. Please. The two sides modestly moved and Pang Xiao and County Magistrate Cheng walked into the city. Qin Yining and her entourage followed behind Pang Xiao. The common people lined the streets to welcome Prince Zhongshan, their enthusiasm surging. Each and every one of them was extremely excited to see Pang Xiao. Some of them stretched their necks to look inside from the periphery of the crowd. There were also some who were closer and exclaimed in admiration, praising Prince Zhongshan's elegant demeanor. As Pang Xiao walked forward, she maintained a slight smile. She politely nodded in greeting to the people, causing the people to cheer and discuss even more. Qin Yining followed with lowered eyes. She felt as though she was being paraded through the streets. If she had not come to investigate and knew that the people here had deep prejudice and hostility towards Pang Xiao, she would have been fooled by the false appearance and felt pride and satisfaction when she saw them like this. But right now, she felt that the people here were not to be trifled with. What was even more difficult to deal with was County Magistrate Cheng, who followed Pang Xiao. She really wanted to know how Magistrate Cheng managed to gather so many people to welcome Pang Xiao despite the fact that the people were against Pang Xiao. If she was wrong, and only a small portion of the people were hostile to Pang Xiao, the majority of the people had come on their own initiative, then it was fine. However, if all of this was Magistrate Cheng's doing, then it was obvious how capable he was. With a smile on his face, Qin Yining greeted the people along with the Pang Xiao. He took the opportunity to roughly analyze the current situation. Soon, the group arrived in front of the government office. County Magistrate Cheng politely led Pang Xiao and his group into the government office to rest. He left the bailiffs outside to persuade the commoners to go back and rest. Just as Qin Yining had expected, the citizens left happily. When County Magistrate Cheng was giving orders to his subordinates, Qin Yining raised his eyes to look at Pang Xiao. Their gazes met and they smiled at each other. When this lowly official heard that Wang Yi and Wang Fei were coming to this county, this lowly official specially tidied up the back of the government office. I will have to trouble Wang Yi and Wang Fei to stay here temporarily. Not at all. Magistrate Cheng, you don't have to be so polite. This king can rest anywhere he wants. In the past, when he was fighting on the battlefield, anyone who slept on a haystack was considered an excellent treatment. County Magistrate Cheng said with admiration, Wang Yi is truly a hero, a true hero. Wang Yi is wholeheartedly devoted to the people. This lowly official really admires him. This lowly official also understands that Wang Yi sympathizes with this lowly official and does not want to trouble the people. However, the government office has already been prepared. This lowly official requests that Wang Yi move and stay in the government office for the time being. This lowly official has also prepared a table of light wine. This lowly official requests that Wang Yi do me the honor. Thank you for the trouble, County Magistrate Cheng. This king is here on an errand, yet I have to trouble County Magistrate Cheng to make arrangements for him. I am truly apologetic. Pang Xiao carefully observed County Magistrate Cheng's expression. He was here on an errand for the people, so it was impossible for County Magistrate Cheng to be completely unaware. He wanted to see how County Magistrate Cheng would respond. Who knew that County Magistrate Cheng would not respond to this? He only humbly and respectfully said, not at all, not at all. Receiving Wang Yi's entourage and making arrangements for his arrival are all part of this lowly official's duties. Wang Yi, you don't have to feel apologetic. Qin Yining sneered when he heard this. This person was as slippery as a loach. It seemed like it would be impossible to get information out of him directly. Qin Yining and Pang Xiao returned to the back of the government office and tidied up a little before going to the front hall to attend the banquet. Originally, County Magistrate Cheng had prepared singers, dancers, and musical instruments. However, Pang Xiao was in mourning and could not entertain himself, so he sent them away. County Magistrate Cheng tactfully changed his approach and introduced Pang Xiao to the county magistrate, officials, and elders of the various families. Pang Xiao was respectful and courteous to these people. Qin Yining also cooperated and livened up the atmosphere by chatting and laughing. This livened up the atmosphere of the banquet that had no singing or dancing. After the banquet, County Magistrate Cheng respectfully said, "This lowly official will take his leave now. Wang Yi and the princess consort, please rest early." "Thank you, County Magistrate Cheng." Pang Xiao smiled and nodded. "Tomorrow, I will consult County Magistrate about the errand." County Magistrate Cheng was magnanimous. He repeatedly agreed and said, "It is this lowly official's honor to have the opportunity to work with Wang Yi. Wang Yi, please rest in peace." After exchanging some more pleasantries, Pang Xiao instructed Tang Xiu to send County Magistrate Cheng out before returning to his room to rest. At this time, Qin Yining had already changed into a light green robe that was neither new nor old. Her long hair was already loose. She sent Ji Yun to rest and sat on the edge of the bed, reading a book while waiting for Pang Xiao. Under the warm and soft light, Qin Yining's long hair was loose and she looked very charming. Pang Xiao's eyes softened. "Sister Yi, are you tired?" "I'm fine." Qin Yining smiled and put down the book. She stood up and helped Pang Xiao wash up and change clothes. This Danfu County is really problematic. It must have been hard on the Lu family. Where did they find such a clever person? You also feel that there is something strange here? Yes. Pang Xiao said seriously, "I have been observing the people here. I can still tell if they are really welcome or if they are just going through the motions. In addition, Cheng Weimin's actions can be said to be watertight. He did not respond to any verbal probing or provocation. It is clear that this person is very shrewd. Perhaps he has already made preparations for everything. So it is difficult to solve the problem of the people." Qin Yining handed a handkerchief to Pang Xiao to wipe his face. "If you go easy on them and the problem is not solved, Your Majesty will blame you for not doing a good job. But if you go too far, it will easily cause dissatisfaction among the people. I don't know why they have misunderstood you now. If you add a layer of bad impression, I am afraid it will cause a revolt." Pang Xiao also straightened his expression. "You are right. So we have to make arrangements in advance to avoid being used against us. If there is a revolt, it will be difficult to solve the problem." It was fine when it came to his enemies. He was not afraid of blood. But when it came to the people of Daeju, Pang Xiao deeply understood the principle that water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize it. He cherished his reputation very much and did not want to be smeared by anyone. After all, they had been hurrying along the way. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining were very tired. After washing up, they settled down. Qin Yining opened his eyes again. He was awakened by a voice outside the door. "Wang Yi, Wang Fei, something happened outside." Pang Xiao jumped up. There was no impatience in his expression due to lack of sleep. Instead, he asked seriously, "What happened?" Outside the door, Tang Xiu was so anxious that her forehead was covered in sweat. "Wang Yi, the magistrate office is surrounded." Pang Xiao's expression turned cold. He turned around and pulled Qin Yining's hand to get her to get up. "Sister Yi, quickly change your clothes and bring your belongings. The magistrate office is surrounded." As he spoke, he also moved nimbly. Qin Yining quickly got up and put on her clothes. She also put on a large cloak. She did not have time to comb her hair. She first put away the small medicine bag left behind by Bing Tang. After thinking for a while, she put away the banknotes and dagger. Finally, she found a hairband and tied her long hair up. The entire process of tidying up took only a breath. "Wang Yi." Outside the door, Tang Xiu asked anxiously, "There are many people gathered outside. They have already blocked the entrance and exit of the magistrate office. They seem to be local citizens. How should we deal with them?" Pang Xiao went forward and pushed the door open. He said calmly, "Don't worry. Follow this king to the entrance to find out what is going on." "Yes." When Tang Xiu saw how calm Pang Xiao was, she immediately felt relieved. She responded in a low voice and followed him. Qin Yining had also finished tidying up. Ji Yun, Jingzhe, and the others had heard the news. They also followed Qin Yining and quickly walked towards the entrance. At this time, the main door of the magistrate office was tightly shut. However, even with the main door closed, it was not difficult to see the fire outside and hear the sounds of people moving around. Pang Xiao's expression turned cold. He sneered, "How interesting. There are post-house inns in this area. This king came but did not stay at the post-house. Who leaked the news? These people want to block this king's door. Instead of going to the post-house, they came to the magistrate office. They know this king's whereabouts so well." It was obvious that the problem lay with Magistrate Cheng and his men. If it was not Magistrate Cheng, then it had to be someone close to him. Xie Yu said worriedly, "From the sounds of it, there are quite a lot of people here. Wang Yi, the guards we brought are very relaxed. Even a tiger can't handle a pack of wolves. If the mob barges in, I'm afraid it will be difficult to handle." As soon as Xie Yu finished speaking, there was a loud shout from outside the door. "Open the door. Ask Prince Zhengshuren to come out. Yes, ask the highest-ranking official here to come out." Then, someone came forward and knocked on the door. The doorman of the magistrate office was so frightened that he was about to cry. His legs were as weak as noodles as he collapsed in front of the door. He wanted to escape, but he could not even stand up. Jinghu Wei and the guards were very calm. They turned to look at Pang Xiao. "Wang Yi, please give us your orders." Pang Xiao thought for a moment and said, "Open the door." "Wang Yi, please reconsider." Tang Xiu advised, "Once you open the door, what if the other party barges in? This door cannot stop the people of this county. It's the same whether we open the door or not. Open the door." Pang Xiao turned back and pulled Qin Yining's hand, asking her to stay by his side. This king wants to see who has the guts to surround the current prince in the middle of the night. Yes. Influenced by Pang Xiao's calmness and grandeur, everyone present felt a lot more at ease, especially the elite tiger guards. They had all followed Pang Xiao and fought bloody battles on the battlefield. How many battles had they not seen before? Compared to facing thousands of soldiers and horses on the battlefield, where life and death were uncertain, these commoners came to cause trouble. They simply could not be afraid. The door opened with a creak. The crowd of commoners standing outside the door held bright torches in their hands. In the dark night, it was so dazzling that it was as if stars had fallen from the sky. These commoners were holding shovels, pickaxes, sickles, sticks, and other items in their hands. They all held torches in their hands. As far as the eye could see, there was no end to the crowd. Princess Consort. Ji Yun supported Qin Yining's arm in shock and fear. "Don't leave this servant's side later. There are so many people. I'm afraid Wang Yi's subordinates will not be able to stop them." "It's fine. Don't worry." Qin Yining was not afraid. She patted Ji Yun's shoulder comfortingly and whispered, "These commoners are not here to throw their lives away. Since they came like this, they must have a request. Let's see what their goal is and what they want. If it's something that can be solved, as long as we give them a promise, it should be fine. Even if it doesn't work out, Wang Yi will protect us." Ji Yun nodded. "Princess Consort, this servant is not afraid. If there really is danger later, this servant will definitely protect you." Qin Yining snickered and said softly, "Wang Yi, ask these commoners what they want." Pang Xiao heard Qin Yining's relaxed voice. She turned back and saw Qin Yining smiling casually under the light of the torches. She was not afraid at all. Chapter 1009. Qin Yining's calmness infected the people around him. Pang Xiao, who was originally a bit agitated, also calmed down at this time. Pang Xiao was the first to stand in front of the door. Qin Yining followed closely behind. Jinghu Wei and the silver-masked spy protected Pang Xiao and Qin Yining respectively. The front of the Fu Yamen was illuminated as bright as day by the torches in the hands of the people. Qin Yining could also clearly see the anger on the people's faces. Qin Yining estimated that there were more than 1,000 of these people. Every one of them had a weapon in their hands. They were only a few steps away from her. If these people swarmed her, Qin Yining didn't think that Pang Xiao's 100 men would be able to stop them. Actually, Qin Yining was also a bit panicked in his heart. When encountering danger, it was impossible for her to not feel anything. Especially when so many people were staring at her with angry eyes, as if they couldn't wait to skin her and pull out her tendons. Qin Yining, who was very sensitive to danger and hostility, felt as if someone was scraping his body with a knife at this time. But reason prevailed. At this point, she and Pang Xiao couldn't panic. If they panicked and were afraid, what would happen to their subordinates? Would they advance or retreat? If these people retreated, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even if they were skilled in martial arts, they would be trampled into meat paste in this sea of people. The people gathered in front of the Yamen and had been shouting for a while. Now that they saw him come out, they all stopped talking at the same time. Someone in the crowd shouted loudly, "Prince Zhongshiren has come out." After confirming that it was Prince Zhongshiren, the people angrily began to talk. Pang Xiao couldn't hear them clearly, so he raised his hand and waved it down. With an amiable smile on his face, he said in an amiable tone, "My fellow villagers, everyone has gathered here today to see this prince. You must have encountered something difficult. Everyone, don't worry. If there is a problem, this king has come out. Everyone, feel free to speak. As long as your request is reasonable and does not violate the law, this king will help you solve it." The best way to deal with angry citizens was to appease them. First of all, Pang Xiao was a military general, and he was known throughout the country as the god of war. His butcher's knife could only be used against his enemies, against the invaders of the Great Zhou dynasty, and not his own people. Secondly, the disparity in numbers was too great. Although Pang Xiao was confident that he could protect Qin Yining and fight his way out, if he really killed the civilians, the consequences would be devastating. If he really killed innocent people and the news spread, not only would it give Li Qitian a reason to punish him, but it would also cause him to lose the image and reputation that he and Qin Yining had painstakingly built up. His heroic reputation would turn into infamy. He and Qin Yining were now staking everything on this one throw. They couldn't afford to take even half a step back or make even a single mistake. Right now, Pang Xiao was doing his best to lower himself and make himself appear closer to the citizens. He only wanted to safely resolve the current situation. When the citizens saw that Prince Zhongshiren was actually so gentle and easy to talk to, they couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Then, someone mustered up the courage to shout, "We won't go build the imperial mausoleum. Write a written agreement for us." That's right. As soon as one person spoke, the others immediately echoed, "Write a written agreement for us. As long as you write that the imperial mausoleum will not be built from our Danfu County in the future, we will immediately disperse." When Pang Xiao heard this, his expression gradually darkened. "Everyone, are you doing this for the sake of the citizens?" "That's right. We just won't go build the imperial mausoleum," Pang Xiao said in a low voice. "Building the imperial mausoleum is your majesty's decree. This king may be a supervising official, but this king only has the power to supervise. This king can't decide on the issue of the citizens alone. Moreover, this king saw in the dossiers that when the imperial mausoleum was built, the citizens ate well and lived well. They even had meat every few days. It was even better than living at home. Why are you so against it? Moreover, Danfu County recruited 4,000 citizens. This was your majesty's decree, an imperial edict with golden words and jade words. Danfu County has gathered so many citizens to go against the imperial edict. Could it be that you want to rebel? Bah. Bullshit. Someone in the crowd loudly cursed. What do you mean by eating well and living well? What meat? Are you trying to fool us? Are we fools who don't know anything? That's right. The last time the imperial mausoleum was built, 3,000 citizens were recruited. In the end, less than 400 people came back alive. Even if we citizens are a bit poorer, we are still raised by our parents. Don't tell me those citizens don't have relatives. Aren't they human? Are they beasts that the imperial court can harm at will? After these words were said, the citizens present became agitated. The citizens' curses in front of the Yamen shook the heavens. Pang Xiao saw this and knew that someone was trying to stir up the citizens' emotions. However, what they said was true. They had recruited 3,000 men, but in the end, only 400 came back alive. This was indeed true. However, these records were not in the records that he had read. From the citizens' point of view, Pang Xiao's heart ached for them. Danfu County had a large population and a lot of farmland. However, when 3,000 citizens were recruited, every family had to have able-bodied men to go out. In the end, only 400 people came back alive. Wasn't every family in the county a handicap? Such a scene was even more chilling than a plague. Because a plague could not be controlled by humans, it was the imperial court who caused the deaths of the citizens. However, from his point of view, Pang Xiao was indeed wronged. Before this, he had no idea of the situation. He did not even think that such a thing would happen during the construction of the imperial mausoleum. It looked like the person behind this was trying to stir up the citizens' emotions and kill him. While Pang Xiao's mind was spinning, someone in the crowd started to cry. "Don't believe the imperial court's nonsense. I was one of the citizens who came back. Building the imperial mausoleum is not a job for humans. The government officials embezzled our food and expenses. Every meal we ate was a surprisingly thin porridge. For more than 10 days, we didn't have a single meal. Every day, we would be blindfolded and called to work if we slept for less than 4 hours. If we refused to work, or if we were a little slow, we would be whipped. We didn't have enough food, warm clothes, and not enough sleep. How could it not be dangerous during construction? Even if it was a famine year, it would be better to eat grass and roots at home than to build the imperial mausoleum." When this person spoke of the situation, the rest of the people agreed with him. The scolding that had died down exploded again like water being poured into hot oil. Not only was the imperial court being scolded, even Pang Xiao, Wang Yi, who was in charge of building the imperial mausoleum, and all of Pang Xiao's family members were cursed by the citizens using the most vulgar words. Especially the female elders, the scolding was simply unbearable to the ears. The other side had many people and was very loud. Pang Xiao and Qin Yining definitely could not out-argue them. Pang Xiao loudly shouted, "Quiet! Everyone quiet! Did everyone come here today to solve a problem or to rebel? If you continue to scold, in the end, even if you have a reason, it will become unreasonable. Everyone quiet!" Many of the citizens nearby felt that Pang Xiao's words made sense and quieted down. After all, no one wanted to be labeled as a rebel and be suppressed by the imperial court. Most of the citizens came to take the risk for the safety of their family members. They had no choice but to come. However, there were people in the crowd who stirred up the atmosphere and deliberately misinterpreted Pang Xiao's words. "Bah! Lackey! You're not willing to work for us and you want to threaten us? We have so many people, do you think we're afraid of you? Even if this matter is brought to your majesty, it will still be because we have a reason. If you happily write a written agreement for us and guarantee that you will not use any more citizens from Danfu County, we will immediately disperse. Otherwise, we will simply kill all of you corrupt officials today. Yes, kill the corrupt officials. Live a peaceful life in the future. The entire county has been mobilized. What can the imperial court do to us? Isn't there a saying that the law cannot punish the majority? Most of the citizens had a herd mentality. In the face of such a major event, if someone advocated, there would immediately be others who would respond. At this moment, if someone in the crowd said, "Wang Yi is innocent," they would immediately associate this webpage with the newly appointed supervisory official and that he was not the one who built the imperial mausoleum. However, the people targeting Pang Xiao were already prepared. They were bound to incite the anger of the citizens. The anger of the citizens had been incited. In addition, they had a large number of people and the entire county had been mobilized. They did not believe that the imperial court could behead everyone in the county. Thinking of this, the citizens did not care. Some of the more impatient hotheads raised their sickles and charged forward. "Kill the corrupt officials." The Wang Estate's guards immediately unsheathed their weapons and blocked in front of the yamen. Seeing the imperial court's people unsheath their weapons and pointing them coldly at the citizens were flustered and angry. The citizens who were charging forward were thrown to the ground by the scabbard. Tang Xiu strode to the periphery and drew a line on the ground. As a member of Jinghu Wei, she had killed and seen blood on the battlefield. When she was serious, her aura was not to be underestimated. Listen carefully. Wang Yi has no intention of harming the innocent. If you defy your superiors and besiege the yamen, you will be charged with treason. Those who cross the line will die. Tang Xiu used her loudest voice and strongest aura. The citizens who were closer to her felt their eardrums go numb from the shock. Many of the citizens quieted down and felt fear in their hearts. However, the people leading the charge would not give up. Immediately, a few men with pickaxes, shovels, door bolts, and other weapons rushed up while cursing loudly. "I don't believe it. You really dare to chop me up? We have so many people. If you have the ability, chop us all up." These people did not care about the weapons in the hands of the Wang estate's guards. They directly charged into the yamen with their weapons. Tang Xiu looked at Pang Xiao with a troubled expression. Pang Xiao made a hand gesture and shook his head. He instructed the guards not to harm the lives of the citizens. Tang Xiu was helpless. She could only go forward and knock out the remaining people. These men were all tall and strong. Who knew that they would collapse in just a few hits? The citizens nearby had experienced the power of the Wang estate's guards and were so afraid that they wanted to retreat. Chapter 10:10. Pang Xiao did not order anyone to harm the commoners. The people who were standing in the front row also saw that although the guards said those who cross the line will die, they only knocked people unconscious. However, the commoners at the back did not know. When they heard that there was a massacre in front, the commoners at the back all stretched their necks to look forward, anxious to know if their family members were injured. The crowd of more than 1,000 people was pushed forward by the people at the back, while the people at the front could only follow the crowd. There were even some who did not understand the situation and concluded that Prince Zhongshiren had started to kill people. Impulsively, they raised their weapons and rushed forward. Especially those who had lost their family members because of the construction of the imperial mausoleum, they could not suppress their anger and did not care about the consequences. They only wanted to kill the corrupt officials of the imperial court to avenge their family members. Qin Yining was protected by Ji Yun, Jing Zhe, Young Man, and Da Han, while Pang Xiao was surrounded by Jinghu Wei. The commoners surged forward like a tide. When Pang Xiao reached out to pull Qin Yining back, he was forcefully pushed away by the crowd. "Stop, back off. Everyone back off. This is the magistrate court. Do you really want to rebel?" Tang Xiu and the other Jinghu Wei shouted loudly. However, how could the commoners, who had been stirred up, care about anything else? They had already rushed forward and could not retreat. Jinghu Wei and the guards could only use their scabbards to confront the commoners. Because of Pang Xiao's order not to hurt people, they could not kill people. Although they could temporarily suppress some people, they could not stop the momentum of the commoners in the chaotic battle. At this time, if they fell, they would definitely be trampled into meat pace. However, Pang Xiao and Qin Yining's targets were too obvious, especially Qin Yining. Even if she did not put on makeup, she was still beautiful. Under the light of the fire, her panicked expression was even more eye-catching. Among the crowd, there was a rude and lecherous person. He pointed at Qin Yining and shouted, "Kill that dog of a official, Wang Yi. Let's bring this woman back and punish her properly. We can also vent our anger. Yes, kill that dog official. The imperial court even sells the family members of criminals. We also need to punish the family members of that dog official." The mob, who had been provoked into anger and malice, suddenly had a bad idea and rushed towards Qin Yining. At this time, Pang Xiao's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He swung his fists, and each punch could knock out a person. He didn't even have time to dodge the sickles and hoes that were coming at him. He went straight for Qin Yining. When Jinghu Wei saw Pang Xiao's suicidal posture, he was almost scared out of his wits. Due to Pang Xiao's orders, he couldn't kill the commoners and could only use the scabbard to block the attack. Naturally, the progress was slow. In front of Qin Yining, Ji Yun, Jing Zhe, Young Man, and Da Han tried their best to prevent the mob from getting close to Qin Yining. However, the other party had too many people. At this time, Qin Yining was in a terrible fix. She didn't expect that they had thought of so many possibilities before coming here. She had also come in advance to take the lead, but in the end, she still fell into a trap. First, the commoners didn't come. Then, Pang Xiao was lured here. Then, there was the news that Pang Xiao massacred commoners. Pang Xiao's many years of hard work would really be in vain. At that time, they would lose the support of the people. If Li Chitian wanted to kill Pang Xiao, wouldn't it be considered as getting rid of evil for the people? Qin Yining was determined not to let such a thing happen. She hurriedly reminded Ji Yun and the others in front of her, "Don't hurt them. They were just instigated by others." Jingzhe gritted his teeth and responded loudly, "Yes, but in this situation, how could they solve it? If things continued to develop, it was only a matter of time before the defense was broken." Qin Yining could only say loudly, "Everyone, don't be agitated. If you have any problems, say it out loud and we can discuss and solve them. You are the reasonable party. If you really offend the magistrate's office, the imperial court will misunderstand that you are rebelling. No one can bear the crime of rebellion. Calm down, everyone calm down." Qin Yining repeated these words over and over again. Many commoners hesitated when they heard this and felt that Qin Yining's words were right. Their original goal was to get Prince Zhongshuren to write a letter of guarantee. Who would have thought that not only would they fail to get the letter of guarantee, but they would also offend the magistrate's office? If they were really accused of rebellion, their entire families would be implicated. Some people hesitated and tried to persuade the people around them to stop. But the ones who spoke loudly were always the ones who took the lead to incite the crowd. "Don't listen to that woman's nonsense. She looks like a vixen. Who knows what evil ideas she has in mind? That's right. If we catch her, we can threaten Prince Zhongshuren." What's the use of threatening Prince Zhongshuren? It's better to kill Prince Zhongshuren and replace him with a good official in the imperial court. The shouting continued. At first, those who were lustful toward Qin Yining began to make high-sounding excuses and directly rushed to Qin Yining's side. Some people even reached out their big hands to touch Qin Yining's face. At this moment, Qin Yining suddenly saw a cold light flash in front of his eyes. Then he heard the big man scream in pain. There was a red mist in front of his eyes. The hand that was about to touch Qin Yining had already fallen into the crowd. The big man clutched his broken arm and screamed in pain. Blood spurted everywhere. This scene frightened the people around him. Qin Yining was also stunned. He subconsciously looked at Pang Xiao and secretly wondered why Pang Xiao was so impulsive. In this situation, no matter what, he couldn't hurt the people. Unexpectedly, just as his gaze met Pang Xiao's, he saw Pang Xiao's eyes suddenly widen. Then, Qin Yining felt a cold hand grab his wrist and forcefully drag him back. He turned around and saw the person who had grabbed him. It was the young man he had taken in. Qin Yining wasn't the only one who recognized him. Jingzhe, Ji Yun, and a few others also recognized him. After saving him that day, Qin Yining had arranged for Xiao Shui to send him to see Hall Leader Liao. However, this person had appeared right in front of him. For a moment, Qin Yining's mind was in a mess. He couldn't tell whether this person was a friend or a foe. The young man pulled her to his side. Immediately, the man whose hand had been cut off chased after her and shouted, "Hey, hey, hey, catch this stinking woman." The young man used his broken right arm to hold Qin Yining in front of him. He held the bamboo stick tightly in his left hand and spun it. Qin Yining saw a silver light flash in front of her eyes. In an instant, the throats of those men were cut. Blood immediately spurted out. Oh my God! Murder! This move frightened everyone. Taking advantage of this time, the young man used his broken arm to protect Qin Yining. The knife in his left hand flashed wildly. Protecting Qin Yining, he killed a bloody path and rushed out of the crowd. When Pang Xiao saw Qin Yining being taken away by a strange swordsman, he panicked and shouted, "Stop that person." He wanted to rush forward himself. However, he was surrounded by armed rioters. He didn't dare to get close. Jingzhe and the other two silver-masked secret agents and Ji-Yun chased after Qin Yining like crazy. Jingzhe and Da Han arrived first. They pulled out their swords and slashed. They were determined to take Qin Yining back from the young man. However, the young man's left hand moved so fast that they could only see the flash of the knife. In the blink of an eye, only the sound of weapons clashing could be heard. Jingzhe and Da Han's arms and chests were injured. Ji-Yun and young man also rushed over. Ji-Yun pulled out the soft sword from her waist. "Let go of our princess." The young man used his broken arm to hold Qin Yining tightly and rushed forward. At the same time, he used the bamboo knife in his left hand to block the people in front of him. He also had to find time to block the weapons coming from behind. In a tense moment, he couldn't care less. When he saw that the person chasing after him was the woman who had once given him biscuits, the tip of the knife was already pointing at Ji-Yun's chest. "No!" Qin Yining screamed and reached out to pull the young man. "Don't kill anymore." The young man turned the tip of the knife and cut Ji-Yun's shoulder. Blood immediately dyed her clothes red. Jingzhe, young man, Da Han, and Ji-Yun were soon covered in wounds. However, they risked their lives to snatch Qin Yining back. The young man was pincered by the people and the pursuers. He fought back with one hand using the knife at the fastest speed. However, his back was still injured several times. Soon, the young man brought Qin Yining into the crowd. Everywhere he passed, there were casualties. Such a ferocious momentum stunned the rest of the people. For a moment, the scene was terrifyingly quiet. Someone among the people recognized the young man and shouted, "It's the wolf cub." The wolf cub killed people. It turns out that the wolf cub knows how to use a knife. "Oh my God, my son. Brother." One after another, people found that their family members had been injured by the young man and fell to the ground. The people immediately cried and pointed their anger at the young man. "Catch that wolf cub and kill him, kill him." Someone shouted and immediately, people rushed forward. However, how could the people with door bolts and farm tools be a match for the young man? Even Jingzhe and the others could only hurt the young man's skin. They couldn't get close to him at all. Pang Xiao had already caught up with Jinghu Wei. At this time, he didn't care about whether he would accidentally injure others. Pang Xiao pulled out his knife and rushed to the young man's side. However, the people in the crowd who had the intention to incite the crowd immediately led people to surround Pang Xiao. "Quick, Prince Zhongshiren also wants to escape. If he escapes, we will be sending the people to their deaths. Quick, stop him." Many of the people who were not injured by the young man rushed forward and surrounded Pang Xiao again. "Get out of the way. All of you, get out of the way." Pang Xiao rushed left and right angrily. However, he couldn't kill without thinking. His hands were tied and he could only watch as Qin Yining was taken away. At this time, the last string of reason in Pang Xiao's mind was almost snapped. His red eyes stared in the direction of the young man. "Sister Yi. Wang Yi, calm down." Xu Weiji was also holding the scabbard in her hand. She was barely protected by Jinghu Wei as she followed Pang Xiao. She grabbed Pang Xiao's sleeve forcefully. "Wang Yi, think about the current situation. Why are you doing all this? Think about how much you have sacrificed. If all your previous efforts are wasted, Princess Consort will also be implicated. But Sister Yi has already been taken away. Wang Yi, look carefully. That person took Princess Consort but didn't hurt her at all. That means that he kidnapped Princess Consort and has a request. First, we have to get through this hurdle. Then, we can take our time to plan and save Princess Consort." At this time, Ji-Yun was already exhausted. Her shoulder was in so much pain that she couldn't lift it. Separated by the crowd, the woman's voice was sharp and penetrating. "Wang Yi, that's the person we mentioned before. The person who was sent to the village." Those who didn't know the situation naturally didn't understand. Chapter 10-11. Pang Xiao's pupils suddenly shrank. She gritted her teeth and waved her scabbard. She swung the axe in front of her eyes and cursed the despicable man in her heart. First, He used Qin Yining's sympathy to let her save him so that he could get close to him. Then, he would figure out the details before making other plans. Why didn't he get struck by lightning? Pang Xiao bellowed in rage, "Stop it right now. If you move again, you will be charged with rebellion. You don't care about life and death, but do you not care about your mothers and fathers?" While Pang Xiao was negotiating with the people, Qin Yining had been pushed out of the encirclement by the young man. Qin Yining was splashed with blood all over her body, but she was not hurt at all. The young man's face was pale. His dark blue cloth clothes were full of broken knife marks. The smell of blood was strong all over his body. Obviously, he was seriously injured. Except for the people who stayed in place to make Pang Xiao write the guarantee letter and still surrounded the government office, many people whose families were injured by the young man chased after him with hatred, as if they wanted to tear Qin Yining and the young man into pieces. The young man was limping, but he still ran fast with Qin Yining. When no one stopped him, he put the bamboo knife's knob into the bamboo stick and clamped it under his right armpit. His uninjured left hand held Qin Yining and almost carried her feet off the ground. Qin Yining's heart was complicated. Why was she so stupid? Saving people was a good thing, but she didn't know that she had saved such a master. Maybe this person didn't need anyone to save him at all. She was meddlesome. The chaos of the crowd was getting farther and farther away, but the pursuers didn't slow down. The young man ran with Qin Yining all the way. They turned and turned in the county town and finally found a place to hide behind a pile of junk in a narrow alley. This place was already very far away from the yamen, so the clamor of shouting was almost inaudible. Only the sound of dogs barking in shock could be heard. The young man grabbed Qin Yining's hand and hid her behind him. They squatted close to the wall, using a pile of firewood and bamboo baskets as cover. From Qin Yining's angle, he could see that the young man's back was covered in cuts and bruises. Most of these wounds were inflicted by Jing Zhe and his men when they were trying to snatch her back. The commoners were no match for the youth's bamboo blade. He was completely unguarded against her. Qin Yining had a dagger in his hand. She could also immediately stab the dagger into the young man's back. However, when she saw the young man's body tensed up and he stared at the entrance of the alley like a vigilant beast, his left hand subconsciously protecting her, and the wound on his back was still bleeding, Qin Yining suddenly understood. Was this person trying to save her? He was a barbarian who did not know the rules, he was deaf and mute, and could not understand what the people were saying. He only saw that some people wanted to take her, and some people wanted to touch her. With his skills, even 3 silver-masked spies together were no match for him. Moreover, he had lost an arm and a leg. It was too easy for him to escape from Xiao Shui's sight. He could not hear and did not know the rules. When he returned to Danfu County and saw her being surrounded by so many commoners, and some people wanted to molest her, he would definitely rush forward to protect her if he wanted to repay her. However, he was now covered in cuts and bruises, but she was completely unharmed. Not a single strand of hair was missing. Other than her body being a little dirty, she was completely fine. When Qin Yining saw how people did things, she always did not care about what others said. She only cared about what others did. This young man could not speak, but he used his actions to bring her out of the mob's encirclement. He fought with all his might and used his body to protect her, not letting her get hurt at all. He was like a wretched and vigilant wild dog, baring his fangs and trying his best to protect her. Qin Yining did not know if she was overthinking things, but based on the situation in front of her, this was the conclusion she reached. The young man wanted to kidnap her. When they first met, he had many opportunities to do so. At that time, she was completely unprepared. He did not do so at that time, which meant that he did not want to kidnap her. Moreover, she had already shown her face in front of so many people and was being chased by so many angry commoners. If she left the young man now and was caught by those men with bad intentions, the consequences would be unimaginable. Thinking of this, Qin Yining made up her mind. She could not leave the young man. For now, she would follow him. It would not be too late to plan further after they escaped from danger. At this moment, there was a flurry of footsteps outside the alley. Someone shouted, "I saw them running this way with my own eyes. Damn it, once we catch that wolf cub, We will chop him up and feed him to the dogs. Yes, catch him. I want to avenge my brother. The curses of hatred gradually faded away with the footsteps. Qin Yining did not dare to move or make a sound. The young man was still tense. His left hand was already grabbing Qin Yining's wrist, and he did not move from his previous position. Not long after, the footsteps came back again. Is he really not here? He went that way. Let's go. Let's go and take a look. A group of people held torches and weapons as they ran in the other direction. At this moment, the young man grabbed Qin Yining's wrist with his left hand and ran out of the alley with her with the bamboo stick. The two of them reached the street and rushed forward with all their might. At this moment, Qin Yining was really glad that her physical strength was still good. She did not grow up with her parents and still had a pair of divine legs. If she had a 3-inch golden lotus, wouldn't she have been caught long ago? Over there. A loud roar came from far behind her. Qin Yining's heart trembled. She quickly turned around and saw a sea of torches chasing in their direction. The young man did not let go of Qin Yining's wrist and continued to run wildly. At this moment, the entire Danfu County was awakened by this unforeseen event. The 3 major clans of Danfu County accounted for 70% to 80% of the county's population. This time, they suffered the greatest loss. Naturally, the 3 major clans were the ones who led the commotion in front of the yamen, and they also sent the most people. But who would have thought that Prince Zhongshiren did not hurt anyone? Instead, he attacked the wolf cub who had been eating dog food in their county for 4 years. Unexpectedly, he was such a powerful person. The 3 major clans, regardless of whether it was the main clan or the side branches, had suffered more than 100 casualties. How could they let the murderer go? As a result, Qin Yining and the young man did not stop chasing after them. Everyone wanted to catch them and cut them into pieces for revenge. The young man took Qin Yining and fled to the outskirts. They barely managed to shake off their pursuers and hid in a forest. In the darkness, the forest was full of shadows. The branches were messy, and the bushes gave off a strange and sinister feeling. The young man took Qin Yining to climb up the steep slope and hid her behind a bush, while he still stood in front of her to protect her. Now that they were far away from the city and in the mountains, the smell of blood on the young man's body was even stronger. Qin Yining knew that he was seriously injured. Because he had been running, his wound had been bleeding non-stop. She frowned and gently tapped the young man's shoulder. The young man turned around and met Qin Yining's gaze. He lowered his eyes and head. Qin Yining knew that he could not hear or speak, so she gestured at the wound on his back. The young man looked at her for a long time and shook his head. Qin Yining sighed helplessly. When she came out, she had brought a dagger and banknotes. She had also specially brought along various small packets of Bing Tang medicine. Now was the time to put them to good use. She took out the packets of medicine. Just as she was about to move, she suddenly heard footsteps coming from the foot of the mountain. The firelight gradually grew brighter. Qin Yining put away the packets of medicine with a serious expression. The pursuers did not give them a chance to rest or apply medicine. Search. They must be nearby. Yes, catch that wolf cub. We must skin him alive. And that woman. Once we catch her, we must teach her a lesson. They are all lackeys who harm ordinary people. The group of people cursed and formed a wide circle as they walked up the mountain step by step. Qin Yining's expression was serious. If this continued, they would definitely be caught. The young man turned around and pushed Qin Yining's shoulder to hide her in the bushes. Qin Yining frowned as she was pressed into the bushes. Her hair was messed up by the branches and her clothes were torn. The young man pursed his lips and looked at her. He patted her arm and nodded heavily. Then, he turned around and ran. Qin Yining was stunned. She immediately understood his intention. This person wanted to lure the pursuers away. Qin Yining wanted to call him back. But she knew that it was useless to shout because the young man could not hear her. She watched as the young man ran away. Soon, she heard a series of curses and shouts. Then, she heard screams. Qin Yining furrowed her brows tightly. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, the sounds of fighting finally died down. Then, she heard the footsteps of a crippled person approaching in a disorderly manner. Qin Yining crawled out of the bushes and saw the young man holding a bamboo stick as he staggered over. The pursuers at the foot of the mountain were completely silent. There were so many people. They were all killed. Qin Yining did not know what to say. This person was different from all the people she had met before. If she said that he was vicious, he could have ignored her. But because of Emil, he rushed into the crowd to take her away from the mob. Because of that, he got himself into trouble. Even though he was covered in wounds, he did not let her go. He protected her tightly and did not let her get hurt at all. But if she said that he was not vicious, he did not hesitate to kill people. It was as if in his eyes, human lives were the same as the lives of ants. He killed people as if he was stepping on ants while walking. He did not feel guilty at all. Killing people was like eating a meal to him. The knife in his hand was so fast that it was like an afterimage. Even though he had lost an arm and a leg, he still had such outstanding skills. This was enough to prove this point. This person had been abused in Danfu County for 4 years. He was like a useless child beggar, eating pig food and dog food. He had never thought of fighting back. But why did he take the initiative to get involved this time? Was the truth really as she guessed? In the past, Qin Yining did not believe that this person was a murderer. But now, it seemed that he believed it. But why would such a person, who tried his best to repay her for treating him to a meal, kill the wife of the great benefactor who saved him? Chapter 10-12. Taking advantage of the fact that there were no pursuers, Qin Yining took out the small medicine bag again. No matter what the young man's past was, no matter how suspicious he was, they had to survive. Qin Yining gestured at the young man's wound and whispered, "This is medicine. You are injured and have lost too much blood. You must stop the bleeding immediately." After saying this twice, the young man's puzzled expression changed to one of understanding. He did not nod in agreement. Instead, he grabbed Qin Yining's wrist and continued to walk. His footsteps were already staggering, but he still refused to slow down. His grip on her hand was still very tight and he refused to let go of his bamboo blade. This person was so stubborn and could not hear. Qin Yining could not persuade him and could only helplessly follow his footsteps. There was not a single ray of moonlight in the forest at night. Qin Yining staggered as he walked. The two of them had not walked far when the sound of footsteps came from the foot of the mountain. Qin Yining's heart skipped a beat. He was so nervous that his palms began to sweat. Now that he was sure that he would be safe with the young man, the people of Danfu County had shown extraordinary tenacity in chasing after them. This was easy to understand. 80% of the people of Danfu County came from the 3 great clans. The people who had caused trouble in front of the Yamen today were definitely from these 3 great clans. The young man had killed along the way, and most of the people he had killed were from these 3 great clans. They had aroused the hatred of these people. In addition, the people here despised the law and valued the rules of their clans more. Qin Yining could already foresee that they would be chased all the way. The people of these 3 great clans would not rest until they were dead. They ran all the way. If they could not escape, the young man would have to face the people chasing after them. Those people were no match for the young man. Wouldn't the hatred grow as the young man killed more and more people? Qin Yining ran breathlessly and said helplessly, "You can't kill anymore. You really can't kill anymore." However, Qin Yining knew that the young man could not hear him. He did not react at all. He only led Qin Yining through the forest and ran to an increasingly remote location. At this moment, in front of the county yamen of Danfu County, there were many more commoners than before. The earth-shattering noises were mixed with sorrowful wails, piercing people's eardrums and causing pain. "We just came to ask Prince Zhongshuren to write a letter of guarantee. Why did we have to suffer such a vicious attack? What right do you have to kill my son? Return my son's life." Pang Xiao did not kill anyone, but the young man led Qin Yining to escape. He was ruthless and unscrupulous. Killing people was no different from chopping melons and vegetables. Therefore, There were very few intact corpses among the dead people. Although the people here were pedantic and stubborn, they were also ordinary people. When had they ever seen blood splattered on the spot? Even the bystanders who saw it couldn't help but retreat in fear. Those who knew that something had happened to their disciples and came to collect the corpses had already fainted from the shock of seeing the incomplete corpses. At this moment, Pang Xiao was on the verge of losing his temper. Qin Yining had been taken away. Although Xie Yu and Xu Weiji both said that Qin Yining would be fine, how could Pang Xiao not be anxious? However, these commoners kept questioning him. They surrounded the place so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. More and more people were coming. Something had happened under his nose. If he did not express his stance, even if he did not order people to kill the commoners, he would still be blamed for it in the end. Pang Xiao had to protect his reputation because his reputation directly affected the success of his mission with Qin Yining. If he failed, everyone close to him would be buried with him. It was because Pang Xiao knew the stakes that he had to endure. However, his sister Yi had disappeared. But now, his people were trapped in this sea of people. Wang Yi, please calm down. Xu Weiji's forehead was covered in sweat. There are too many people in this county. Even a random bookseller can bring 3,000 to 4,000 people, let alone ordinary commoners. Now that something like this has happened, you have to think of a solution. Don't be impulsive. Xu Weiji's words were vague, but Pang Xiao immediately understood. Everyone, please calm down. This king was almost assassinated just now. His princess consort was also taken away. This king must get to the bottom of this matter. You have already gathered in front of the Fu Yamen and caused a ruckus in the middle of the night. This king did not immediately arrest you because you are innocent commoners who have been bewitched and implicated by others. Please be rational and think carefully. What is the difference between you causing a ruckus and rebelling? You are rebelling against the imperial court. Do you really intend to implicate your entire family? Don't threaten us. There are so many of us. What are we afraid of? Yes, we don't need to be afraid. Someone in the crowd echoed. Someone even shouted, if you don't write a guarantee for us today, we won't disperse if you continue to conscript commoners in Danfu County. We can't watch our descendants die. That is an imperial edict. This king is not the one who gave the order. How can he be qualified to sign a guarantee? If you are dissatisfied and are not afraid of the crime of disobeying an imperial edict, you can go to the capital and ask your majesty to sign a guarantee for you. This king is only a subject. He only listens to your majesty's orders. You have found the wrong person to write a guarantee for. That's right. Xu Weiji also shouted at the top of his voice, everyone, listen to this old man's advice. It is useless for everyone to cause a ruckus here. Tang Xiu's face was also gloomy. She lowered her voice and played the villain. If you make a ruckus again, this general will behead all of you first. Such treacherous people, not to mention killing one, so what if I kill all of you? As soon as Tang Xiu's voice fell, the Jinghu Wei raised their swords. Previously, they could only use their scabbards. Now, the shiny silver swords shone with a cold light under the moonlight. The commoners were frightened and their noise quieted down. When the people in charge saw that Pang Xiao was unwilling to relent, they knew that Prince Zhongshiren was not an easy person to deal with. A few people hidden in the crowd discussed and made a decision. We have to guard this place. Today, we must make Prince Zhongshiren sign a guarantee. But that wolf cub must die. We have to avenge the deaths of more than 100 people. In that case, let's split into 2 groups. A small portion of the people in front of the Yamen will stay. The rest will go catch that wolf cub. With the leader's idea, the rest of the people also had a backbone. Although the people surrounding the Yamen did not intend to leave, those close to the periphery of the encirclement had already begun to discuss how to intercept the wolf cub. At the same time, Qin Yining was pulled out of the forest by the youth. It turned out that there was a village on the other side of the forest. There were not as many buildings as there were in the city. There were only 2 main streets. It was clearly a village under Danfu County. From afar, the village was pitch black. However, there was still one more day until the middle of the 7th month. The bright moon hung high in the sky and the outline of the village could be seen clearly. At this time, the youth's footsteps were becoming more and more unsteady. He also loosened his grip on Qin Yining's wrist. Qin Yining was panting from running. Her breath was full of the youth's bloody smell. When they escaped from the forest earlier, they encountered another group of commoners who wanted to intercept them. Qin Yining did not want the youth to kill any more people. Just as she was about to speak to him emotionally, the youth protected her and brandished the bamboo blade in a silver flash. His technique was fast and ruthless. After seeing it many times, Qin Yining realized that his martial arts were different from Mu Jinghu's. Mu Jinghu's movements were graceful. Even if he was surrounded and attacked, he would try his best not to get hit. However, the youth in front of her did not care about whether he was injured or not. He raised his blade and faced the attacks head-on. If he could block, he would use his blade to block. If he could not, he would avoid his vital points and use less blood in exchange for his opponent's life. It could be said that he had been hurting his enemy at the cost of his own life. Such a ruthless person was ruthless to his enemy and even more ruthless to himself. He was just like the wild beasts she had seen in the past. In order to survive, they would bite each other, even if they were covered in scars. Qin Yining looked at the youth's back. Under the moonlight, his dark blue short brown hair was full of messy cuts. The cloth wrapped in the smell of blood fluttered as they ran. Qin Yining was worried. How much blood could a person have? Who would be able to withstand such a method? It was not easy for them to reach the village. Qin Yining's legs were sore and her calves were almost cramping from exhaustion. However, the youth did not slow down. He staggered and limped as he tried his best to pull her along. It was more convenient for the two of them to hide in the dark. However, the pursuers behind them did not seem to care at all. They held torches and lanterns. Qin Yining's hearing was not good enough to hear the voices and footsteps of the pursuers. However, when they ran, they kept looking back. They could see the lights behind them very clearly as they approached the village. "They're chasing us again," Qin Yining muttered to herself as she panted. The youth pursed his lips and turned back. He had obviously seen the lights approaching the village. He dragged Qin Yining around to find a place to hide. However, the structure of the village was too simple. Moreover, it was night time, so all the houses were closed. With great difficulty, they ran forward for a while. The youth dragged Qin Yining past the door of a wealthy house and pushed her into the shadow of the stone lion and the corner of the house. He pressed Qin Yining's shoulder and hid her in the shadow. Qin Yining knew that he wanted to hide her so that he could distract the people who were chasing after them. Qin Yining shook her head. "We can't go on like this." The youth naturally did not respond. He slowly stood up with the support of the bamboo pole and was about to face the enemy. Qin Yining stood up worriedly. "You'll die if you go on like this. Come back." Just as she finished speaking, the young man staggered a few steps forward and suddenly fell forward. Qin Yining turned pale with fright. She quickly ran in front of him and gently pushed his shoulder. What she touched was warmth. "How are you? Don't die." There were so many wounds and so much blood. Qin Yining felt that it was already a miracle that he was able to last until now before falling down. She saw a group of people snaking towards them from the path that they had come from. She was a bit panicked, but she also knew that if she left the youth behind, the people would definitely cut him into pieces when they arrived. This person had gotten into this kind of trouble because of her. Qin Yining would not do such a thing. Forget it. In any case, she was the princess consort. Those people would not directly kill her, right? Thinking of this, Qin Yining gritted her teeth and tore her skirt to bandage the youth's wounds to prevent him from bleeding too much and dying. Chapter 10:13. Under the moonlight, the crisscrossing wounds on the young man's back were clearly visible. His clothes were tattered and his wounds were badly mangled. Just one look at him sent chills down her spine. Why did he have to do this? He didn't have to get involved in this. Qin Yining gritted her teeth and tore her skirt into strips of cloth. She wrapped them tightly around his wounds to stop the bleeding temporarily. She had brought the medicine from Bingtang, but the long line of lights was getting closer and closer. Qin Yining hurriedly bent down to help him up. She held the young man's bamboo knife in one hand and supported him with the other. She struggled to bring him to hide. Looking left and right, all the buildings in the village came into view. If they hid in the alley, they would be discovered immediately. The best plan now was to try her best to hide in the forest. However, the pursuers had already entered the village. The long line of lights was approaching at a speed visible to the naked eye. Qin Yining couldn't escape alone, let alone with another person. Qin Yining frowned. She could only drag him to the shadow of the corner where he wanted to hide her just now. However, in the blink of an eye, Qin Yining realized that something was wrong. The young man had lost too much blood, and there were bloodstains on the ground. As long as the pursuers lowered their heads, it would be easy for them to discover them. Qin Yining was at a loss for words. It seemed that she had to be mentally prepared to be captured. Those people might use her as a hostage and force Pang Xiao to write a guarantee. In order to bring her out of the encirclement, the young man had killed so many people. The people of Danfu County would probably punish him in their own way. The young man would definitely die. What should she do? At this moment, Qin Yining really hated that she wasn't as skilled in martial arts as Mu Jinghu. Creak, a soft sound unique to the opening of a door came from beside her. Qin Yining looked up in a panic and saw an elegant man in his 40s walking out of the mansion. He was also looking down at her and the unconscious young man. The man frowned. Qin Yining's heart was filled with helplessness and frustration. Oh no, they had been discovered. Although Qin Yining felt helpless and afraid, it was useless to only worry and fear when encountering danger. She began to picture several different situations in her mind and thought of a way to deal with them. Quickly bring him in and hide, the middle-aged man said anxiously. Qin Yining was stunned. She had thought of several consequences, but she had never thought that she would meet someone who didn't care about how many people the young man had killed in Danfu County. Seeing that the pursuers were about to turn into the street where she was, Qin Yining had no other choice but to believe the middle-aged man for now. Qin Yining carried the young man into the house. He carefully wrapped the young man with his outer robe to stop the bleeding for the time being. The middle-aged man supported the other side of the young man, and together with Qin Yining, they carried the young man into the house. The middle-aged man turned around and closed the door. At the same time, Qin Yining heard the sound of footsteps approaching from afar. There was no time to hide. Qin Yining quickly hid in the shadows behind the door with the young man. Through the wall, she could hear many people stopping in front of the door. Some people continued to run forward. Look, there's blood on the ground. The person seems to be nearby. Sure enough, someone with sharp eyes noticed the blood on the ground. Immediately, someone said, "Is this person trying to harm philanthropist Wang?" "No, we have to inform philanthropist Wang." Then, someone knocked on the door. After 4 or 5 knocks, the middle-aged man who had been standing by the door, philanthropist Wang, slowly answered the door. "Who is it?" "It's me." Philanthropist Wang pretended to be confused and pushed open the door. "What's going on outside? Did Prince Zhengshiren agree to our request?" Qin Yining nervously held her breath. She covered the unconscious young man's mouth with her other hand. They were very close to the pursuers. If the pursuers took 2 steps into the yard, they would be discovered immediately. However, it was obvious that the people outside had no intention of entering the door to search. "Philanthropist Wang, the matter with Prince Zhengshiren hasn't been resolved yet. Right now, they're surrounding the magistrate's office and discussing it. You must be careful. That wolf cub is actually a martial artist. He's already killed over 100 people in our county." The person who spoke gnashed his teeth. "That bastard. Back then, you gave him a way out, but he went from bad to worse. There's such a thing." Philanthropist Wang was stunned. "He still doesn't know how to repent." The informant said, "Don't be too naive. The Yuan, Liu, and Yu families have all said that they must catch this wolf cub even if they have to risk their lives. We are afraid that the wolf cub will hold a grudge against you and come to you for revenge. You must be careful." Philanthropist Wang nodded repeatedly. Okay, I understand. Thank you for coming to tell me. You're welcome. The informant smiled and said, when you see old Steward you later, please give him a good word. Of course. Philanthropist Wang nodded. After sending away the pursuers, Philanthropist Wang quickly closed the door. He put his ear to the door and listened to the movements outside. The entire village was in chaos, but he let out a sigh of relief. He turned to nod at Qin Yining and beckoned for her to follow him inside. At this time, a few young servants came forward without saying a word and helped the unconscious young man to carry him inside. When Qin Yining saw this, she could only follow. Qin Yining already had a guess. This philanthropist Wang was probably the one whose wife had been killed, but he didn't immediately punish the murderer. Now it seemed that this philanthropist Wang didn't hate the youth that much. Therefore, if it wasn't that philanthropist Wang didn't have any feelings for his wife, then it was possible that there was a hidden story behind the killing of his wife. As Qin Yining's thoughts flashed, she had already followed philanthropist Wang to a side room. The servants placed the young man on the bed and left as instructed. There were no outsiders here. Philanthropist Wang respectfully bowed. This commoner pays respects to Wang Fei. Qin Yining's eyebrows jumped slightly. Thinking about it, the entire county had gone to the Prince Zhongshiren to ask for help. It wasn't strange that he knew who she was. No need for formalities. Many thanks to philanthropist Wang for saving my life. Not at all. This commoner is just a merchant and doesn't deserve Wang Fei's thanks. Also, the person in trouble was him. Philanthropist Wang looked at the unconscious youth on the bed with a complicated expression. Wang Fei, please forgive me. I don't have any servant girls in this residence, only a few rough servants. They are skilled in movement techniques. I can't call a doctor right now. This commoner will go prepare some hot water and give him a simple clean and bandage later. How about Wang Fei rest for a bit and eat some food? This person didn't plan on helping the people capture her to threaten Pang Xiao after the Yamen had been surrounded in the city. However, Qin Yining wasn't a person who was afraid of trouble. This philanthropist Wang's actions were strange, but no matter how strange, it wasn't as important as the youth's situation right now. The youth had lost too much blood and fainted. If things went wrong, he would lose his life. Putting aside the fact that the youth had taken her out of the encirclement and disrupted her plans, she couldn't ignore the injuries the youth had received along the way to protect her. I'll take care of his wounds. I have some medicine for wounds. It's fine if there aren't any servant girls in the Fu. Please prepare some salt water and sugar water. We'll have him drink it later. Qin Yining instantly took out the small medicine bag he carried with him. He followed the instructions of Bing Tang to find the right medicine. Philanthropist Wang saw that Qin Yining was planning to personally save the youth and stilled. He sighed emotionally. It is his good fortune to have met Wang Fei. Such a familiar and emotional sigh caused Qin Yining to be even more certain that there was something going on between the two of them in the past. Qin Yining said calmly, "It's not a blessing. I just gave him a full meal. I hadn't thought that he would gamble his life for this. No matter what, he wanted to take me out of the encirclement. If he didn't take me with him, he wouldn't have received so many wounds. Just based on his sincerity, I couldn't ignore him. You are a good master." Philanthropist Wang placed a wooden basin filled with hot water by the bed. He then silently went to prepare salt water and sugar water. Qin Yining felt it was strange when she heard his response. She and the youth had only met by chance. They didn't have a master-servant relationship. She did not reveal such information to Philanthropist Wang, but Philanthropist Wang sighed with emotion the moment he opened his mouth. Qin Yining found 2 kinds of medicinal powders for external use and a bag of medicinal pills that could be used. She then started to treat the youth's wounds. Her movements weren't very skilled. At least, she couldn't compare to a doctor. However, she had been injured many times when she had survived in the wild. She wasn't afraid of treating wounds and knew a bit about it. The medicinal powder that Bing Tang gave was very effective in stopping bleeding. The longest wound on the youth's back was so deep that the bone could be seen. After the medicinal powder was applied, it stopped bleeding. Qin Yining was even more generous when she saw this. She used all the medicinal powders she had and used the clean white cloth that philanthropist Wang had prepared to bandage the wound. At this time, philanthropist Wang came in with a tray. There were 2 large bowls on the tray. The sugar water and salt water are here. Qin Yining nodded and smiled. Thank you for your help. Ari. I don't dare. Philanthropist Wang came forward and helped the youth turn over so that he was lying on his side. He fed the sugar water and salt water spoonful by spoonful into the unconscious youth's mouth. Although the youth was unconscious, he still had the ability to swallow. Soon, he finished the 2 bowls of water. Qin Yining took out another bag of medicinal pills. He took out 3 crushed pills and mixed them into half a bowl of warm water. He gave the pills to philanthropist Wang to feed to the youth and explained, "This is medicine to clear away heat and cool the blood. His injuries are so serious. The wound will definitely cause a high fever." Philanthropist Wang nodded and began to feed the youth the medicine again. Qin Yining looked at philanthropist Wang's patient actions from the side. His suspicions deepened. He hated the person who killed his wife so much that he didn't want to give him a quick death. Instead, he broke his arms and legs and made him beg for 4 years. During these 4 years, he had been fed pig food to sustain his life. Wasn't philanthropist Wang's patient treatment a bit too suspicious? After feeding the youth the medicine, philanthropist Wang sat on the side and didn't leave. Qin Yining was a bit worried. He was afraid that if he left, philanthropist Wang would do something to the youth. Therefore, he didn't leave. Chapter 10:14. Philanthropist Wang let out a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "That's good. You should go and rest." "Yes." The servant respectfully replied and retreated. Philanthropist Wang then said to Qin Yining, "It's getting late. Why don't you go and rest?" Qin Yining shook his head, "Thank you for your kindness, but I'm not tired yet." Although her dress was stained with blood and her hair was messy, she didn't think it was important. She didn't feel at ease leaving the youth alone in front of philanthropist Wang. Philanthropist Wang seemed to have seen through Qin Yining's concerns. He smiled bitterly and didn't try to persuade her anymore. The bright silk lamp outlined the pale and thin outline of the unconscious youth. Philanthropist Wang looked down and after a long time, he opened his mouth. Once upon a time, there was a person who was born in the countryside. His father was a scholar and his mother died early. His family was poor when he was young. When he was 7 or 8, his father also passed away. He then became a clerk in a small shop. Qin Yining looked at philanthropist Wang and didn't interrupt him. Instead, he listened to his slightly hoarse voice. He was a smart child. Because he was taught by his father when he was young, although he wasn't very talented, he could at least read and calculate. Thus, he was supported by the shopkeeper in the shop. Later, due to the chaos of war, the shop could not continue to operate. In order to make a living, he became a traveling merchant. He traveled extensively, saw many aspects of the world, and experienced many dangers. As his horizons broadened and his mind became more flexible, his business grew bigger and bigger. However, the world was chaotic and he was a traveling merchant. He wasn't married. He was already 27 that year. When he came to a wealthy county, he met a young lady while he was traveling. He was quite handsome. The young lady took the initiative to interact with him a few times. Later, a matchmaker came to propose marriage. However, the young lady was the legitimate daughter of a large local family. Her father didn't like the traveling merchant at first. Later, after many twists and turns, he proposed that the traveling merchant marry into their family. He was used to traveling as a merchant and had no relatives in his hometown. Moreover, he truly loved Miss, so he agreed to marry into her family. After becoming the son-in-law of that rich family and receiving the support of his father-in-law, Mount Tai, his business was like adding wings to a tiger. He set up his own business and established a big business. In just a few years, the income he earned was even more than his father-in-law's family. Philanthropist Wang raised his head and looked at the green bamboo embroidery on the curtain. He continued, "Originally, he and that young lady were very loving. However, no matter how deep the feelings were, they could not withstand the erosion of time. He could gradually feel that the young miss was beginning to treat him half-heartedly. One year, he went on a long trip. When he returned to the county, he found an unconscious young man. The young man was wearing a long robe and straw sandals. He didn't look like a Taytan, nor did he look like a foreigner from Bayou. There was also a strong smell of the sea on him. It was obvious that he wasn't Han. The merchant was moved by compassion and saved the youth. He invited a doctor to treat him and kept him alive for a few days. After the youth recovered, he kowtowed to the merchant and often followed the merchant like an imperial bodyguard. At that time, the merchant thought that perhaps the youth wanted to be his bodyguard to protect him and repay him for saving his life. Qin Yining's eyes were wide open as he looked at the unconscious youth on the bed. Philanthropist Wang continued, the merchant originally thought that the youth was an honest person who was skilled in martial arts. He often did business, so it would be good to have someone skilled in martial arts protecting him. In any case, he wouldn't mistreat the youth, so he acquiesced to his actions. Who would have thought that after only one day, something big would happen in the merchant's family? Philanthropist Wang suddenly turned around to look at Qin Yining. His eyes were dark and his voice was trembling. That night, the merchant found out that his wife was having an affair. All these years, he treated his wife wholeheartedly. Even if his wife was cold to him, he didn't think much of it. Suddenly, he found out that she was having an affair with the adulterer. His blood boiled and he wanted to catch the adulterer. However, in his anger, the merchant forgot that he wasn't an expert. He only knew some basic martial arts. In a few moments, he was tied up by his wife and the adulterer. From the conversation between his wife and the adulterer, he realized that his wife had been having an affair with the adulterer for a long time. His father-in-law, Mount Tai, also knew about it. He even condoned his daughter's actions and wanted to steal his family's wealth. The merchant already had too much wealth in his hands. His father-in-law was a greedy person. He and his wife came up with this plan. They wanted to use this opportunity to kill the merchant and rightfully obtain his wealth. At that time, the merchant was completely disheartened. But just as his wife and the adulterer were about to kill him, the youth he saved suddenly appeared. His knife skills were extremely fast. Before the merchant could stop him, the adulterer who was about to kill him was killed by the youth. The merchant was scared out of his wits. It took him a long time to react after he was untied. Before he could think of a solution, his father-in-law rushed over with a large group of people as if he had planned it all along. They surrounded their family's mansion. The merchant's father-in-law found his daughter's corpse and questioned him sternly. The elders and guards who came with him were also very aggressive. The merchant was shocked and angry at that time. There was also a strong sense of unwillingness. If his father-in-law had gotten his way, it didn't matter if he lost his life or his family's fortune. But he really couldn't take it lying down. So, the merchant was quick-witted and pushed the blame for his wife's death to the youth he had picked up. He said that he had picked up a person out of kindness, but he didn't expect him to commit murder. Perhaps his father-in-law didn't want his daughter's affair to be made public. His daughter was already dead and he needed to think about it at length. So he didn't immediately investigate and pretended to believe the merchant's words. The merchant's father-in-law wanted to send the youth to the authorities. Although the merchant sacrificed the youth for revenge, he still felt uneasy in his heart. Especially when his father-in-law ordered people to capture the youth. The youth looked at the merchant in disbelief. The merchant would never forget that gaze in his life. That gaze of despair after being betrayed. The youth was a person with great martial arts skills, but he seemed to have given up in an instant. He didn't resist and let them capture him. The merchant didn't want the youth to die. He persuaded his father-in-law not to report it to the authorities. He said that it would be better to keep the youth alive. Death would be a relief. His father-in-law had lost his daughter and naturally wanted to find an outlet to vent, so he agreed to the merchant's request. The merchant's father-in-law then took over the merchant's assets bit by bit. At the same time, he ordered people to torture the youth who was wandering the streets. He told everyone that the youth was an ungrateful wolf cub who didn't deserve to eat human food. He was worse than a pig or a dog. But only the merchant himself knew that the youth was a loyal person who knew how to repay kindness. Although he was deaf and mute, he understood everything. He was indebted to the merchant for saving his life, so he recognized the merchant as his master. In return, he saved the merchant's life and killed the people who wanted to kill him. However, he turned the tables on the youth. The youth was betrayed by the master he trusted. That was why he was so disappointed. People who valued morality and kindness treated these as beliefs and beliefs. After being betrayed, he was disheartened and allowed others to bully him. He even had his arms and legs broken. Philanthropist Wang looked at Qin Yining with a smile and said calmly, "It has been more than 4 years. The merchant's assets were almost all taken over. He was alone and couldn't fight against the powerful clans. He couldn't resist at all. He lost his wife and family because of his father-in-law's greed. He was also an innocent person who was betrayed. And all these things that he went through, don't the people around him know about it? Those people who saw his assets change owners one by one, don't tell me they didn't notice anything. Those people only received some benefits from his father-in-law and didn't want to pay attention to it. The merchant didn't let anyone down. Everything he did in his life was open and above board. The only person he let down was the youth who was abused for 4 years because of him." Philanthropist Wang looked at the unconscious person on the bed and his voice became softer. "That's why this commoner said that the princess is a good master. If only he had met you earlier." Qin Yining pursed his lips and didn't say a word. The room was so quiet that one could hear the sound of breathing. After a long silence, Philanthropist Wang suddenly stood up and turned to Qin Yining with his hands behind his back. He said with a smile, "For the sake of that loyal person, this commoner will tell the princess one more thing." "What is it?" Qin Yining's voice was a little hoarse. Philanthropist Wang said, "Do you know why this commoner didn't go to Huichuan County? Actually, this was my idea." "What?" Qin Yining suddenly stood up and couldn't help but raise his voice. "Don't be surprised. This was really my idea. Although Magistrate Cheng and the Lu family are inextricably linked, perhaps you don't know that Magistrate Cheng is a good person who wholeheartedly serves the country and the people." Qin Yining was stunned and slowly stood up. Philanthropist Wang said, "Magistrate Cheng read the court bulletin and knew that there will be a flood this year. After the flood, there will be a drought. In less than a year, there will be a famine in the south. When Daju was first established, the national treasury was empty and there was a limited amount of money. The emperor didn't think about how to relieve the disaster, but instead started building the imperial mausoleum. The limited amount of money wasn't used to save people, but was used to do such a thing. Magistrate Cheng was so worried that half of his hair turned white." Philanthropist Wang's lips curled into a smile. If one looked closely, they would find that there was a hint of mockery. "I haven't known Magistrate Cheng for long, but I'm honored to be regarded as his confidant. Once when we were drinking, we talked about this matter. Magistrate Cheng was worried that the imperial court wouldn't be able to relieve the famine. He was afraid that the country that had just stabilized would become unstable again. At that time, the people would suffer." Chapter 10:15. Philanthropist Wang looked at Qin Yining. Even though he had said these words, his expression was still calm and his smile was still refined. But when Qin Yining looked at Philanthropist Wang like this, he felt a chill run down his spine. Then he felt anger. "Philanthropist Wang, did you really think about the people when you did this?" Qin Yining did not look directly at Philanthropist Wang's expression and said without hiding anything, "You were betrayed by your wife. Your father-in-law plotted to steal your family property, and you have been suppressed for 4 years. Bit by bit, your hard-earned family property was swallowed up, but you could not fight back and could only watch. This feeling of powerlessness is even worse than being killed, right?" Philanthropist Wang looked at Qin Yining with a very calm expression. "Wang Fei is wise. So you said that you came up with this idea because you admire Magistrate Cheng's dedication to the country and the people. You should say that you want to use Magistrate Cheng's knife." Qin Yining sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the sleeping youth. He slowly said, You came from outside the village, so you are like us outsiders. You can see at a glance that the people of this county are united in front of the three large groups. They can ignore the laws of the country, but they cannot ignore the rules of their families. Their thoughts are ignorant and stubborn. These people may not be bad people, but the things they do are the most unforgivable. You hate them for not upholding justice for you. You hate them for helping their relatives instead of reason. You hate them for being indifferent to all the injustices and misfortunes that you've encountered. You even pinned the crime of your father-in-law's family trying to steal your family's property on everyone in the county. In the quiet room, the lantern lit up again. Philanthropist Wang was standing not far from Qin Yining and suddenly showed an interested smile. Everyone says that Prince Zhongxian's consort is intelligent. Today, I see that it is true. Wang Fei is right. I do have such thoughts. I have never wronged them, but how did they treat me? I have already said it. I can say with a clear conscience that I have not wronged them. I have only wronged one person. Moreover, this time, he has helped me greatly. For a moment, Qin Yining didn't realize what he was talking about. Philanthropist Wang laughed. While you were being hunted, he helped me kill so many people from Danfu County. How could that not be considered helping? Those fools deserve to die. Philanthropist Wang's voice rose uncontrollably due to his agitation. Qin Yining looked at his twisted smile and felt a wave of regret and helplessness. If it wasn't for the fact that she had no other choice, she really shouldn't have brought the young man to stay in a stranger's house. This philanthropist Wang was not a kind person. Qin Yining shook her head. She didn't want to persuade philanthropist Wang, because she knew that once a person's mind was set, it would be difficult for others to change it. Qin Yining simply said, every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. What's the use of killing innocent people? The person who took everything from you is still free and at ease. As if Qin Yining had stabbed him in the heart, philanthropist Wang's voice became sharper. What do you know? You haven't personally experienced what I've been through, so how would you know my pain? Besides, are they innocent? How are they innocent? They're all jackals of the same tribe. You're just standing in a high position now and can casually judge others. Could it be that if you were in my position, you would be able to think of a better idea? Ideas are all thought of by people. You're so intelligent that you can think of such an idea. You're killing two birds with one stone. If you want to take revenge on the person who stole your property, you just need time and opportunity. You just can't wait. Qin Yining's words made philanthropist Wang speechless for a long time. After a while, philanthropist Wang suddenly laughed. Everyone says that Prince Zhongxian's consort is the daughter of the wise Pan An. She has always been talented, beautiful, and shockingly intelligent. Now it seems that this is indeed the case. Qin Yining smiled and didn't say anything more. She had already said what she wanted to say, so there was no need to anger philanthropist Wang at this time. However, according to philanthropist Wang's way of doing things, this person was bigoted and stubborn, and his methods were also very ruthless. If someone wronged him, he would blame all of the hatred on that person's entire family. He wouldn't even let the other 3 families in the county go. Just now, he even mentioned the people that the young man killed today. What if philanthropist Wang had sent people to watch the young man's every move? Perhaps from the time she saved the people, to when she and Pang Xiao came together and was rescued, even when the young man rushed into the crowd to save her, perhaps it was all within philanthropist Wang's calculations. Even if he didn't understand others, he knew the young man who would repay kindness. He gave her a chance to get to know the young man, just for the current result. Qin Yining thought a lot and deduced everything that had happened in reality according to the cause and effect. This most ridiculous and unlikely situation became the most likely fact. Qin Yining sighed and said, compared to your flawless calculations, I really feel ashamed. Philanthropist Wang saw Qin Yining's expression and opened his mouth to refute. At this moment, the unconscious young man suddenly opened his eyes. Qin Yining and philanthropist Wang looked at the young man at the same time. Qin Yining hurriedly got up and checked the young man's temperature on his forehead. You're awake. You still have a fever, but I think your body will get better. Even if the young man couldn't hear, Qin Yining still spoke patiently. The young man took some time to regain his senses. Perhaps he didn't know where he was, so he squinted for a long time before he could clearly see his surroundings. When he saw philanthropist Wang standing by the bed, he immediately turned over and sat up. Hey! Slow down. Look at the wound carefully. Qin Yining was afraid that the young man's wound would rupture, so he hurriedly went to help him. He also brought warm sugar water to him. The young man looked at Qin Yining's concerned eyes and then looked at the bowl that was close to him. In the end, he pursed his lips and nodded his head before drinking the water. Qin Yining said, "Quickly lie down and rest for a while." The young man clearly couldn't hear what Qin Yining said. He just stood up and grabbed the bamboo knife that was stuck to the edge of the bed. With his other hand, he grabbed Qin Yining's wrist and strode out. Qin Yining realized that the young man wanted to take advantage of this moment to leave with her. He pulled on his sleeve to force him to stop and turn around. "It's really not suitable for you to go out in your current condition. You should recuperate properly. Why don't we stay here for the time being?" Qin Yining was afraid that the young man wouldn't understand, so he hurriedly gestured. The young man calmly looked at Qin Yining, then coldly looked at philanthropist Wang. When philanthropist Wang met the young man's gaze, his eyes were as calm as before. Compared to what Qin Yining saw just now, he truly showed some guilt. Qin Yining observed carefully and realized that perhaps philanthropist Wang really did feel guilty towards the young man. However, why would such a person who had planned to scheme against innocent people feel guilty towards the young man? She didn't know if philanthropist Wang really had a conscience or if he was moved by the young man's stubborn loyalty. If it was the latter, she could understand. Just like the current her. Although the young man was a stranger to her, and she was surrounded at the beginning, things didn't develop into such a complicated situation. However, because the young man took her away, everything happened later. She should actually blame the young man for being meddlesome. However, along the way, the young man protected her tightly. He had so many wounds all over his body, but Qin Yining didn't even suffer a scratch. A stranger repaid the kindness of a meal in such a way. This kind of affection was enough to move people. Moreover, the young man couldn't hear and didn't understand what was going on. When he saw that she was surrounded, he risked his life and foolishly brought her out. Such a person was loyal and righteous, but he also had a foolishness. He was so pure that it moved people. Philanthropist Wang was the same kind of person as her. They were both good at scheming and scheming. Perhaps people like them were easily moved by people like the young man? While Qin Yining was thinking, the young man shook his head. He didn't look at philanthropist Wang and pulled Qin Yining's wrist to walk out. The young man was limping and was seriously injured, so it was very difficult for him to walk. If it wasn't for the fight, no one would be able to imagine how he could kill so many people in the encirclement just by looking at his difficult appearance. Qin Yining saw that the young man was determined to leave. Thinking about philanthropist Wang's character, she followed the young man's decision. This person might not be trustworthy. If she stayed here, what if he set up other vicious schemes? Qin Yining turned back and said, "Thank you for saving me, but we should leave." Her gratitude was very sincere, but other than that, she had nothing else to say to philanthropist Wang. Philanthropist Wang looked at the young man's skinny figure and said with a wry smile, "All right, I know you don't trust me. Then you can leave." Philanthropist Wang looked at the young man again. He wanted to approach, but the young man stabbed the bamboo blade into the ground with a thud. The warning was very obvious. Philanthropist Wang didn't continue to approach, but his expression became more and more difficult. Okay, I won't go near." He waved his hand and said, "I just want to say sorry to you. It was my fault that day. I was too selfish and too weak. You saved me, but I bit you back. I know this matter makes you very sad." Philanthropist Wang's voice was full of helplessness and guilt. The young man looked at philanthropist Wang's eyes, and finally pulled Qin Yining out of the Wang family. Philanthropist Wang stood in the same place and quietly watched the young man pulling Qin Yining's back as they gradually walked away and faded out of his sight. In the end, he let out a long sigh. Don't stop them. Yes. The servant who was standing in front of the moon gate bowed his head and responded. Qin Yining was pulled by the young man by the wrist and quickly left the Wang family. When they pushed the door open, the street was quiet. It was already early in the morning, and the sky was about to brighten. The surroundings were dyed with a layer of blue. Even so, Qin Yining didn't dare to let down his guard. He carefully left the village with the young man and found a place to hide for the time being. Chapter 10:16. The young man obviously had the same idea as Qin Yining. Although they hadn't found any pursuers in the village, Wang Dashan lived in the village. They were worried that he would suddenly change his mind and chase after them. The young man's limp seemed to be worse than before. In the quiet night, Qin Yining could hear his tired breathing. Qin Yining was also very tired. She didn't even have time to rest when Wang Dashan was treating the young man's injuries. However, it was fortunate that she brought the medicine from Bingtang. Otherwise, the young man's condition would be bad. The two of them walked along the small path in the village for a while, avoiding people and heading towards the outskirts of the mountain. After passing through a large field, they arrived at the foot of the mountain. The young man pointed at the mountain, then pointed in the direction of Danfu County and gestured a few times. Qin Yining smiled. You want to rest here and send me back when it's safe? The young man obviously wouldn't answer her. He looked for a good angle and started to climb the mountain. Although Qin Yining was tired, she had the experience of living in the wild in her early years. Her body had also recovered a lot under the careful care of Bingtang. The last time she went to Wanfo Temple, she was able to endure the steep mountain path. Not to mention that she was running for her life today. A small hill like this was naturally not impossible for Qin Yining to climb. The two of them hid their tracks as they walked. They looked for a place to hide in the mountain and finally chose behind a small slope. A tall tree with a thick trunk grew on the slope. Its well-developed roots firmly grasped the soil on the slope, forming a natural cave behind the slope that sheltered them from the wind and rain. They were afraid of attracting pursuers, so they didn't dare to start a fire. Qin Yining sat inside, while the young man held the bamboo stick and guarded the entrance of the cave. In the quiet mountain, only the chirping of birds and insects could be heard. Occasionally, there were the cries of wild animals. The sky gradually began to brighten. Everything outside the cave was covered with a layer of blue gauze. The morning wind mixed with dew made people feel very cold. Qin Yining rummaged through the small medicine bag in her arms under the morning light. She found the pills to treat the young man's wounds, some to replenish blood, some to increase physical strength, and some to treat colds. He prepared a few different kinds of pills and delivered them to the young man. Eat these first. Qin Yining was afraid that the young man would not believe her, so she gestured and said, This is a life-saving item. Just now at the Wang family, I gave you this to save your life. However, even though she spoke, Qin Yining did not have much hope. She was in a very sorry state now, and she even took out small pills of different sizes and colors to feed the young man. The situation was very strange no matter how one looked at it. The young man could not hear, and she could not understand the complicated words. Qin Yining felt a little defeated. Unexpectedly, the young man's reaction was very unexpected. He did not wait for Qin Yining to be disappointed for long before he took the pill and swallowed it. He even nodded at Qin Yining expressionlessly. Qin Yining was slightly surprised. Then, he burst into laughter. Aren't you afraid that I'll feed you poison? The young man's expression was a little blank. Seeing that she was smiling, he also smiled. Qin Yining shook her head and laughed, then sat back in her original position. She rubbed her legs tiredly, then hugged her knees and curled herself up. She did not sleep for the whole night. She had spent the whole night being chased. In addition, the young man had collapsed, so she was constantly tense. Only when she relaxed did she realize how tired she was. Taking advantage of the fact that the pursuers had not found them yet, it was important to quickly recharge their energy. No one could guarantee that those hate-filled fools would deal with them later. Qin Yining gradually fell asleep. The young man turned to look at her, then hugged his bamboo stick and closed his eyes to sleep. It was a blessing from the heavens that the pursuers did not immediately find them. Perhaps they had just searched the village, so they thought that they had fled elsewhere. The two of them rested until the afternoon, until they were hungry. Chin Yining even went to pick a lot of wild vegetables and fruits. As usual, the two of them did not dare to light a fire, afraid that the smoke would attract the pursuers. They drank mountain spring water and ate fruits and wild vegetables to fill their stomachs. However, after eating lunch, Chin Yining still made the rational decision to go down the mountain. Although Danfu County is a big county, if they can't find you anywhere else, they will definitely come back here. After all, you left a bloodstain here. Maybe they will even suspect that we are hiding in philanthropist Wang's house. After all, the last bloodstain was in front of the Wang family's house. The pursuers did not suspect philanthropist Wang before because they had the impression that philanthropist Wang's wife was killed by the young man. However, after they really could not find him, how could they not think about it? Even if they did not suspect philanthropist Wang, they would suspect that the young man was hiding in a familiar place. Chin Yining and the young man had a hard time communicating, but at least the other party understood her through sign language. The two of them quietly went down the mountain and carefully observed the surroundings. Although they knew that they could not stay in the village, they did not know which direction was safe. Chin Yining pursed her lips and pondered. Just as she was about to make a decision, she suddenly saw a red dot in the sky from the corner of her eye. It flashed silently, and finally, the light gradually disappeared and turned into a puff of white smoke, which was blown away by the hot afternoon wind. The whole process took only a few breaths. If one did not pay close attention, they would not have noticed it. Chin Yining widened her eyes in surprise, but her heart was filled with joy. It was the Qingtian Alliance's unique firework. It was used to contact each other in an emergency. Because they were afraid that the signal would be ignored, they had a fixed interval. If there was no response from the same firework after 3 fireworks, it would be considered a failure. They could only use this method to contact each other after a period of time. Chin Yining pointed in that direction and said to the young man, "Let's go there. My men are there." Seeing Chin Yining's happy expression, the young man also smiled. Chin Yining took out a similar firework from her belt and lit the fuse with a match. The fuse made a light pop sound, and sparks flew. Then, a red light shot up into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Chin Yining signaled for the young man to quickly follow her. As she walked, she observed the sky. She did not see any more fireworks coming from that direction, so she was certain that the other party had received her message. While they were hurrying, Chin Yining had already thought about the reason for the Qingtian Alliance's arrival and who they would send. In the end, she guessed that it was Hall Master Liao. However, when Chin Yining and the young man avoided the main road and took a small path, finally arriving in the direction of the fireworks, they bumped into a familiar person. When that person saw Chin Yining, he immediately came forward and bowed. "Alliance Master, it's you." The person who came was a familiar face. His name was Meng Qin, and he used to follow Hall Master Qiao. Later, when Liu Ban and Guan Dahu contacted the alliance members, he even helped Hall Master Liao send a message to Chin Yining. "Why are you here? Did Hall Master Liao order you to come?" Meng Qin said, "Yes, but the alliance master might not know that I secretly followed you out. Hall Master Liao couldn't come out, and he was worried that you would encounter some danger outside, so he arranged for me to secretly follow and protect you. Although my martial arts are average, my legs are strong, and I'm good at hiding my tracks. Previously, when you were kidnapped in the county town, I was scared out of my wits." As he spoke, Meng Qin glared at the crippled young man behind Chin Yining. "This fellow ran too fast. I couldn't keep up, and I was worried about your safety. However, I also guessed that this fellow didn't have any ill intentions towards the alliance master." Chin Yining was a bit surprised, but also a bit moved. "It's you who are considerate." Meng Qin smiled and scratched his head. "It's all part of this subordinate's job." "That's right, I just found out the location of the subordinates that Wang Yi arranged to meet you. Now that you and this fellow are outside, It wouldn't be good if you were caught by those rioters. Wang Yi is still surrounded in the county town. Why don't you go and meet up with Wang Yi's subordinates first? Qin Yining didn't interfere much with Pang Xiao's matters. She would only speak her mind when Pang Xiao couldn't make up her mind and wanted to discuss something with her. This time, Pang Xiao only brought Xie Yu and Xu Weiji with her to prevent any accidents from happening in the county town. She left a portion of her advisors and Jinghu Wei outside the town. If anything happened, these people would be able to provide support. When she entered the town, the ceremonial guards were all bestowed by the emperor, as well as the Wang residence's soldiers and a small number of Jinghu Wei. That's good. Wang Yi arranged for Mr. Dao to stay outside the town. They must have heard that something happened in the town and came in. That's right. This subordinate couldn't find Alliance Master, so I guessed that Wang Yi's subordinates would definitely enter the town to meet up with Wang Yi. That's why I kept an eye on them and found out where they were. However, this subordinate didn't act rashly. I was afraid that they wouldn't recognize me and would mistake me for someone with ulterior motives and capture me. Qin Yining smiled and said, "That's good. Let's head over there now." Okay. Meng Qin took out an oiled paper bag from her pocket and removed the water pouch from her waist. "Alliance Master, these are the dry rations, beef, and water I specially brought for you. Please make do with them first." Qin Yining had washed her face with spring water on the mountain and combed her hair simply. However, she didn't have time to clean the bloodstains all over her body. She looked rather pathetic, and Meng Qin's heart ached when she saw her. Qin Yining didn't stand on ceremony. She took the oiled paper bag and opened it. There were several crispy pancakes sprinkled with salt and pepper, as well as slices of marinated beef. She took out a pancake and cut it open in the middle. Qin Yining first handed the pancake to the silent youth behind her. "Hurry up and eat." The youth was a little surprised. He looked hesitantly at Meng Qin and didn't reach out to take the pancake. Meng Qin rolled her eyes at the youth unhappily, then turned her face away. He felt that this barbarian had caused all this trouble by taking Qin Yining away with her. Qin Yining smiled and handed the pancake to the youth again. She made a eating gesture. The youth's lips gradually pursed as though he was trying to hide a smile. Qin Yining saw a dimple appear on his right cheek. He took the pancake with his left hand and took a big bite. Qin Yining laughed. "That's right. If you don't eat your fill, how can you have the energy to travel?" Qin Yining took a pancake and ate it. Then, he took a pancake for Meng Qin and placed the beef in it. Meng Qin smiled and said, "Alliance Master, I already ate on my way here. I specially prepared this for you." Chapter 10:17. The young man wolfed down the food and ate 3 pancakes with meat in a row. Because Qin Yining gave him too much meat earlier, there were only pancakes left in the end. The young man even ate 2 pancakes without meat. Qin Yining was full after eating 1 pancake. He drank some water and watched the young man wolfing down the food. He couldn't help but sigh when he thought about what kind of life the young man had been living all these years. "It's fine. Once this matter is resolved, I'll arrange for you to work by my side. With your skills, it would be a waste for you to farm in the countryside." Qin Yining gestured as she spoke. She didn't know how much the young man understood. What she didn't say was that the young man was lame and had a broken arm. She didn't know how well he could recover. He could fight, but he might not be able to farm. Moreover, he was deaf and mute. It was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't be bullied in the countryside. Arranging for him to be her bodyguard was also a way for her to repay him for protecting her. The young man wiped the pancake crumbs from the corner of his mouth and pursed his lips. There was still a dimple on his right cheek. Qin Yining took it as a yes. With Meng Qin leading the way, they arrived at the outskirts of the county town in the evening. Meng Qin pointed at a nearby village and said, "The largest field there is where Mr. Dao and his men are staying." Qin Yining thought for a moment and said, "Meng Qin, I want to keep you nearby to observe and provide support at any time. What do you think?" Meng Qin saluted him seriously and said, "I'll do as you say." Qin Yining patted him on the shoulder and quietly led the young man into the village. They carefully avoided the scattered passers-by until they arrived in front of a manor on the other side of the village with its back against the mountain. There were several mud houses built in the manor, and the thatched cottages were lined up in rows. The fields extended from the wooden fence all the way down the mountain toward the sunset. It was almost as far as the eye could see, enough to show the wealth of this family. Almost as soon as Qin Yining arrived in front of the main gate, a tall and strong middle-aged farmer wearing an earthen yellow robe saw her from behind the gate. Qin Yining and the young man stopped in their tracks. The young man gripped the bamboo stick in his hand tightly and was ready to unsheath the sharp blade at any moment. Suddenly, a low voice came from inside the room. "It's you." The wooden gate was pushed open, and the farmer came forward excitedly. He cupped his hands and bowed, saying in a low voice, "Princess." Qin Yining breathed a sigh of relief. He lowered his voice and asked, "Is Mr. Dao here?" Yes. Mr. Dao led our group of bodyguards to this place quietly. Wang Yi had instructed Jinghu Wei to purchase this property. As soon as we entered the city, we immediately came here. Mr. Dao was originally worried about Princess Consort's safety. He didn't know where you had been kidnapped and was trying to think of a way to save you. As he spoke, he looked at the young man behind Qin Yining warily. Qin Yining smiled and said as he walked in, "He's not a bad guy. He's one of us." "Where is Mr. Dao?" "He's in the central room." The bodyguards led Qin Yining and the young man inside. Along the way, they met many farmers. They were all very strong. Even though they were not as tall and leggy as Jinghu Wei, they were all strong men. When these people saw Qin Yining, they were extremely respectful. They clearly recognized Qin Yining. Even though Qin Yining did not recognize them, he felt relieved. He felt like he had finally escaped danger and had a new lease on life. Someone quickly went in to report. Not long after, a blue-robed scholar quickly came out with several people. The person at the front was Dao Han's Han. Among Pang Xiao's advisors, Qin Yining's most common were Xie Yu and Xu Weiji. However, Pang Xiao had to carry out his plans and naturally had many subordinates. Not everyone had the right to see Princess Consort. Dao Hanshan's position among the advisors was not as high as Xu Weiji or Xie Yu. Therefore, he did not have many opportunities to see Qin Yining. However, from Pang Xiao's arrangements, it could be seen that Dao Hanshan was also someone that Pang Xiao trusted. He had a very high position among the people around him. This subordinate greets Princess Consort. When Dao Hanshan came close, he respectfully bowed with his people. The scholars and bodyguards behind Dao Hanshan all bowed. Qin Yining quickly smiled and said, "Mr. Dao, no need for formalities." "Everyone, no need for formalities." Seeing that Qin Yining still remembered him, Dao Hanshan was very happy. Seeing that she and the people around her were in a sorry state, he hurriedly said, "Princess Consort, this subordinate will order people to prepare hot soup for bathing. Let's discuss this matter first." Qin Yining smiled. "Use this time to prepare clothes for me and this brother." Qin Yining pointed at the youth that had been following behind him. Dao Hanshan examined the youth and then accepted the order with a smile, saying, "Princess Consort is wholeheartedly concerned about Wang Yi's matter." This subordinate thought wrongly. Then, would Princess Consort please move to the main hall to speak? Qin Yining nodded and walked in front. Dao Hanshan and the others followed behind. The youth hurriedly followed, but he was stopped by Dao Hanshan's bodyguards at the door to the main hall. The youth frowned and wanted to force his way in. The bodyguard said in a deep voice, "This is not a place where you can come. Brother, please go rest." The youth did not seem to hear and continued to force his way in. The bodyguard saw that this person was not willing to cooperate and raised his voice, "I'm talking to you. This is not something you can. Let him come in." Qin Yining noticed the commotion in front of the door. Dao Hanshan asked in confusion, "Princess Consort?" Qin Yining said, "It's fine. It's all thanks to his protection on the way here. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have died at the hands of the mob. Moreover, he can't hear or speak. It's fine if he's by my side." Dao Hanshan looked at the youth suspiciously. The bodyguard in front of the door still reached out to stop the youth. He did not obey Qin Yining's order. Dao Hanshan seemed to analyze the situation before slowly nodding, since it's princess consort's order, then let him come in. With a wave of his hand, the bodyguard in front of the door immediately moved aside. Only then does the young man limp to stand behind Qin Yining with the bamboo stick in hand. Qin Yining could not help but narrow his eyes. She followed Pang Xiao and had absolute authority in front of Xie Yu, Shu Weiji, Huzi, Tang Xiu, and the others. These people were Pang Xiao's most trusted subordinates. They naturally knew the position of princess consort in Pang Xiao's heart. Therefore, the people who followed Qin Yining always obeyed Qin Yining's orders and never doubted Qin Yining's commands. However, the people in front of her right now were different from the people she usually interacted with. Qin Yining was unfamiliar with this feeling. However, she felt comforted. Since Mr. Dao and his subordinates were like this, it was enough to prove that Pang Xiao's people were disciplined and had a fixed system. Only then could they accomplish great things. Qin Yining sat down at the head of the table and gestured for Dao Hanshan to sit as well. Dao Hanshan turned and ordered the others to leave and then had the bodyguards guard the front hall. Then he bowed to Qin Yining and sat down at the head of the table. What is the situation in the city right now? Qin Yining asked the question she was most worried about. She had been kidnapped and Pang Xiao did not know her situation. Wouldn't he go crazy? What she was most worried about was that Pang Xiao would not be able to control his emotions and start a massacre. Then all of their previous efforts would be wasted. Dao Hanshan saw Qin Yining's worry and reassured with a smile, "Wang Fei, do not worry. Wang Yi is fine right now. He is still trapped in the yamen by the mob. Because many people have died in front of the yamen and most of the people in this county come from the 3 large clans, they are familiar with each other and are very united. Therefore, their emotions are even more agitated than before. They have been forcing Wang Yi to write a guarantee but Wang Yi has not responded." As Dao Hanshan spoke, his gaze inadvertently swept across the youth behind Qin Yining. He did not approve of Qin Yining keeping this person by his side. Hearing this, Qin Yining released a breath. As long as Pang Xiao did not act rashly, everything could be resolved. Also, she had thought of a way to resolve the matter of the people surrounding the yamen while they were escaping. At this time, Dao Hanshan was also discreetly examining Qin Yining. Seeing Qin Yining's deep thought, he couldn't help but think of when they were in the Wang Fu. Before Qin Yining had married into the family, Pang Xiao had brought Qin Yining to participate in the discussion of official matters. Not to mention anything else, Wang Yi's love for Wang Fei was unquestionable. And Wang Fei's words in front of Wang Yi also carried a lot of weight. Therefore, there had been rumors of demon concubines causing chaos in the country since ancient times. It could be seen how powerful Pillow Talk was. No matter how well he performed outside, Wang Yi did not know the details. How would he know of his benefits? Thinking of this, Dao Hanshan's smile became more sincere. He said slowly, "Wang Fei." This subordinate knew that something had happened in the city and immediately took action. "I brought people here and waited to meet up with Wang Yi. This subordinate has also notified the people Wang Yi arranged to work in the 4th Bureau and ordered them to immediately return. Fortunately, the capital barracks and the 5 army barracks are not far from here. This subordinate has already ordered people to quickly send a letter to the 5 army barracks. In Wang Yi's name, 3,000 people have been mobilized to quickly come here to quell the uprising." Dao Hanshan had a slight smile on his face and his tone was full of praise. After the sudden mob attack on the yamen, Dao Hanshan's quick and comprehensive response was very capable. However, Dao Hanshan's words caused Qin Yining to frown. "Mr. Dao's arrangements are very appropriate," Qin Yining slowly said, causing Dao Hanshan to smile proudly. "But Mr. Dao's actions will most likely cause the people of Danfu County to be accused of treason. Treason will implicate too many people. It is not appropriate to rashly mobilize the soldiers of the 5 army barracks to quell the uprising." Dao Hanshan's smile disappeared and he said in a deep voice, "Wang Fei's words are wrong. Wang Yi's important matters are currently the construction of the Imperial Mausoleum. If the Imperial Mausoleum is not built, Wang Yi will be accused of treason. The most important thing is the things in the stone factory. Dao Hanshan lowered his voice again and looked at the youth behind Qin Yining cautiously. He remembered that Qin Yining said that he was deaf and mute, so he continued, if Wang Yi wants to achieve great things, those things must be obtained. If the reason why the people of Danfu County besieged the Yamen is revealed, it will inevitably lead to the matter of the people not coming to Huichuan County. This way, the construction of the Imperial Mausoleum will face a thorough investigation by the higher-ups. The delay in the construction of the Imperial Mausoleum is a small matter, but what about the things in the stone factory? With just a few words, she understood Dao Hanshan's ambition. It seemed that Dao Hanshan was looking forward to the achievement of becoming the emperor. Having this kind of ambition was not a bad thing, but Qin Yining could not accept the fact that he would do anything for the sake of becoming the emperor. Chapter 10:18. Dao Hanin's smile completely disappeared. He had never thought that his most comprehensive decision at the time of the emergency would not receive approval or praise from Wang Fei. Instead, she was questioning him as a woman. This subordinate does not understand Wang Fei's words. Dao Hanshan did his best to soften his tone. According to Wang Fei's meaning, we should let this matter fester according to the intentions of the mastermind until it reaches the heavens and Your Majesty orders a thorough investigation. This will force the construction of the Imperial Mausoleum to stop, and the treasures will be left in the stone factory to be returned to someone else. Is this the conclusion that Wang Fei wants to see? Dao Hanshan's tone was as gentle as possible, but the content of his words was very sharp. Qin Yining was Pang Xiao's wife. How could he want the treasures to fall into the hands of others? Mr. Dao, please calm down. Qin Yining could tell from Dao Hanshan's words that this person was ambitious and very conceited. She comforted him, I am Wang Yi's first wife. How could I think this way? Then please advise me, Wang Fei. Dao Hanshan stood and raised his hands. If Wang Fei does not think this way, why do you not agree with this subordinate's actions? Is some people you do not know more important than Wang Yi's safety and ambition? Qin Yining smiled and shook his head. Wang Yi's safety is naturally important. But I want to ask Mr. Dao, does Mr. Dao know about the heavy rain this year? Dao Hanshan furrowed his brow. He felt that even Qin Yining was asking nonsense. He had an impatient expression. This subordinate naturally knows about this matter. Qin Yining said with a serious expression, it has been raining for months. The rain in the north has stopped, but the south has not improved. If this continues, there will be a famine within the year. The country has been at war for years, and the national treasury is tight. If the limited silver is used on the construction of the Imperial Mausoleum, what will the people do when the famine comes? Dao Hanshan felt that Qin Yining was very laughable. This subordinate dares to ask Wang Fei, even if the court does not have the silver to send relief, what does it have to do with Wang Yi? If the imperial court doesn't provide relief and the people rebel against the imperial court and hate you, I think it's better. Qin Yining shook his head patiently. This is the opposite of Wang Yi's original intention when he started the rebellion against BG. The reason why Wang Yi stood up was for the peace of the world and for the common people to be able to live and work in peace and contentment. He did not want the common people to suffer under the tyranny of a tyrant. Now, if we sacrifice the people for that position, how is this different from the tyrants of the previous dynasty? Qin Yining's words left Dao Hanshan speechless. However, he did not think that Qin Yining's idea was correct. Wang Yi is currently in an awkward position in the imperial court. Wang Fei is also aware of the difficulties involved. Now that he couldn't even protect himself, he naturally had to protect himself first. Getting those things from the stone factory was too important for Wang Yi. If this thing falls into the enemy's hands, wouldn't it be suicide? Mr. Dao's idea makes sense. However, even though those things are important, there are things in this world that are more important than treasures. Once you lose your heart for power and status, you will go further and further down the road in the future. Although our current situation is tense, it's not to the point where we have to sacrifice the common people of the entire county. As long as we are willing to think of a solution, this matter will definitely be resolved. Wang Fei says it so easily. Is it so easy to think of a solution for such a difficult situation? Dao Hanshan couldn't help but raise his voice. He paced back and forth with his hands behind his back. This is the current situation. If we don't push the blame, and if Your Majesty blames us, not only will Wang Yi lose the treasure, he will also be used against us. At that time, how does Wang Fei plan to deal with Wang Yi? Solutions are thought of by humans, but there are some things that humans can't do. Qin Yining was no longer smiling. He said in a low voice, I will naturally think of a way to resolve this matter properly and will also inform Wang Yi to do it. Please, Mr. Dao, inform the 5 military camps as soon as possible to cancel the previous plan. Don't implicate the innocent common people. The order has already been given. There is no turning back now. Dao Hanshan looked at Qin Yining and could not suppress the irritation in his eyes. Wang Fei is a woman of the inner residence. It is understandable that you do not understand the matters of the previous dynasty. Wang Yi has given this subordinate full authority to handle this matter. Please, Wang Fei, trust this subordinate and do not interfere. Qin Yining narrowed her eyes slightly. Dao Hanshan's words were already very rude to her. She had been with Pang Xiao for a long time. Those subordinates who often followed Pang Xiao treated her like they treated Pang Xiao. For example, Xie Yu, Xu Weiji, Huzi, Tang Xiu, and the others. They even treated her orders as Pang Xiao's orders. She had never encountered such a person who would not listen to her advice and directly reject Pang Xiao's orders. Qin Yining couldn't help but feel angry that Dao Hanshan was being so forceful with her. Mr. Dao, I do not have any intentions of interfering in foreign affairs. Since Wang Yi is willing to give these matters to you, it means that he trusts your abilities. Dao Hanshan smiled slightly as he looked at Qin Yining. Since Wang Fei knows, this subordinate does not need to waste any more words. Qin Yining's brow furrowed and she said with a cold expression, I think that Mr. Dao's attitude towards Wang Yi would not be like this. To be honest, Wang Yi would not be like Wang Fei. Like me? Qin Yining smiled and slowly said, Mr. Dao wants to say that I am soft-hearted. Dao Hanshan looked with a smile at Qin Yining. He was not willing, but his meaning was clear. Qin Yining shook her head. Mr. Dao, I understand that Mr. Dao wants to assist Wang Yi. You are loyal to Wang Yi and think of Wang Yi in everything. But as a person, there are things to do and things not to do. There are so many people in Danfu County. If they are accused of rebellion, I fear that tens of thousands of people will be buried with them. How many people have died in the years of war? How much effort has Wang Yi put in to quell the chaos of war? It is unavoidable that there will be casualties in war, but this is not war. Wang Fei's thinking is too simple. At this critical moment, Wang Yi's most important thing is to obtain the treasure. Those things cannot fall into the hands of others. Also, Wang Yi sent troops to quell the rebellion of the people of Danfu County. How good of a merit is this? I even have a candidate for the leader of the rebellion. Dao Hanshan pointed at the youth behind Qin Yining. His gaze was like he was looking at a dead object, a useless dead object that was about to be discarded. This person gathered the people of Danfu County to attack the Yamen and then attempted an assassination. The assassination failed and he kidnapped Wang Fei. Under such dangerous circumstances, Wang Yi quelled the rebellion and brought the main culprit to justice. Your Majesty will definitely be happy. The youth felt extremely uncomfortable under Dao Hanshan's gaze. It was as if a tiger or wolf was biting his neck. The youth's entire body tensed up and he gripped the end of his bamboo stick tightly. He had a feeling that the person who gave Qin Yining the biscuits today was hostile towards him. The person in front of him was even more hostile and scheming. He seemed to be suggesting to Qin Yining that he should kill or harm him. The youth couldn't help but look at Qin Yining. The flame in his heart was burning. He was looking forward to how Qin Yining would treat him, but he was also afraid of the answer. He was afraid that Qin Yining would treat him like philanthropist Wang. Just as the youth's thoughts were racing, Qin Yining stood up and stood between the youth and Dao Hanshan. He raised his arm and brushed away Dao Hanshan's hand that was pointing at the youth. Mr. Dao. Qin Yining sternly said, I never knew that Mr. Dao didn't care about the lives of the people. Apart from being able to ignore the lives of tens of thousands of people, you also know how to frame others. Wang Fei. Those who achieve great things don't care about trifles. If we don't take advantage of such a good opportunity, Wang Yi will definitely regret it in the future. Is human life a trifling matter? How is this lowly person worthy of such treatment? It seems that Mr. Dao's way of thinking is different from mine and Wang Yi's. Dao Hanshan was even more displeased when he heard Qin Yining's resolute words. He was also anxious that he had offended Qin Yining and was afraid that she would say something to Pang Xiao. Just now, this subordinate was too anxious to escape and spoke too rashly. Dao Hanshan apologized. Wang Fei is a kind person. It is not hard to understand what you say. If this was a peaceful time, this subordinate would also agree with Wang Fei's way of thinking. But the present situation is different from a peaceful time. There are priorities. This matter concerns Wang Yi's great cause. Wang Fei, please understand. This subordinate really cannot do as Wang Fei says. Qin Yining heard Dao Hanshan mention the great cause again and said mockingly, it seems that Mr. Dao cares very much about the great cause. Dao Hanshan's pupils contracted when he heard this. He finally realized that tonight, he had displayed his ambition too clearly in front of this woman. Wang Yi treated them differently from Wang Fei. If Wang Fei did not like it and talked about it in front of Wang Yi, what could he do? Thinking of this, a light flashed through Dao Hanshan's eyes. He then decided not to argue with Qin Yining. All right. Wang Fei has worked very hard in this period of time. Dinner has been prepared downstairs. Wang Fei, please go and rest. Wang Yi has arranged these matters for this subordinate. This subordinate will naturally take care of them. As he spoke, Dao Hanshan bowed and respectfully sent her off. Wang Fei, take care. Qin Yining saw that he could not persuade Dao Hanshan and knew that it was useless to say more. He could only save the time of arguing. He turned and called for the youth, indicating for him to follow him, and then quickly walked out of the front hall. Outside, Dao Hanshan was much more respectful. Outside the door, several scholars and guards came close and respectfully bowed to Qin Yining. Dao Hanshan ordered people to send Qin Yining to rest. The youth was also given an individual room, but the youth was not willing to leave Qin Yining's side no matter what. The guards who sent Qin Yining and the youth to the door were also in a difficult position. Qin Yining thought for a moment and then said, you can leave. If he wants to stay, he can stay. It's not a big deal. After their escape, Qin Yining had a lot of trust in the youth. At least for now, he did not have any intention of harming her. He had been sacrificing himself to protect her. When the guards heard Qin Yining's words, they looked at each other and then left. Not long after, someone brought in hot water, clothes, and food boxes. Qin Yining used a handkerchief to wipe his face and hands with the hot water. He did not pay attention to his blood-stained clothes. The youth sat on a round-backed chair near the door. He hugged the bamboo stick and seemed to have fallen asleep. The room was so quiet that only the sound of insects could be heard outside. Chapter 1019. Just as Qin Yining was deep in thought, Dao Hanshan returned to the main hall and sat with a dark expression at the head of the table. Brother Dao, what's wrong? A middle-aged strategist with a long beard carefully observed Dao Hanshan's expression and asked carefully. This person's name was Chen Jing. He was also one of Pang Xiao's strategists, but his status was not as high as Dao Hanshan's. In these years, he had always followed Dao Hanshan's lead and had become his confidant. Dao Hanshan shook his head. Seeing that he seemed to have something to say, Chen Jing turned his head and motioned for the strategists and guards to leave. When there was no one else in the room, he lowered his voice and asked, "Has Wang Fei angered Brother Dao in some way?" Hearing this, Dao Hanshan frowned and said, "Wang Fei is of noble birth. Even if there are disagreements, it is us, as subordinates, who did not handle things properly and angered Wang Fei. How can you say Wang Fei angered us?" Chen Jing smiled and said, "Brother Dao, there is no need to be so nervous. There are no outsiders here, only you and me brothers. What is there that cannot be said between us?" If this was in the past, Dao Hanshan would not have allowed Chen Jing to say such things in front of others. But just now, he had been greatly angered by Qi Nining and could not overstep his boundaries to vent his anger at Wang Fei. He was angry because of this matter. Hearing Chen Jing say this, he snorted, "A woman's view is not enough to make a plan." Wang Yi praised her as if she was a living dragon. Now, it seems that she is a person with long hair and short knowledge. Wang Yi is such a wise person, but in the end, he is unable to resist the charms of a beauty. Chen Jing smiled and said, "Since ancient times, heroes have been unable to resist the charms of a beauty. What is so strange about this? If Wang Fei was just a normal woman, it would be fine. If she only had beauty and knew how to serve Wang Yi, it would be fine. The problem is that she is somewhat smart, and thinks she is smart. This kind of woman is the most difficult to deal with. If she went to speak to Wang Yi, it would affect Wang Yi's decisions. If she went to Wang Yi and said something bad about someone, Wang Yi would believe her. That's right. That's the bad part." Dao Hanshan said, "Just like what happened today, in such a dangerous situation, we have to make sure that Wang Yi does the right thing. Wang Yi is devoted to the country, but your Majesty is deeply afraid of Wang Yi. Previously, when we were in Beijing, how much mistreatment did Wang Yi suffer? This is not something that only we, as subordinates, have seen. This is something that all the citizens of the capital have seen. Wang Yi's meritorious service is so great that your Majesty is afraid of him. This is an indisputable fact. In this kind of situation, you should be even more careful. You must not let your Majesty have any evidence against you." But today, Wang Fei still talked to me about original intentions and disagreed with me sending troops to quell the rebellion of the people of Danfu County. Don't you think this is laughable? Chen Jing pretended to be surprised and raised his eyebrows. Did Wang Fei say why she thinks so? Dao Hanshan smiled coldly. She said that the people are innocent. Right now, she is only thinking about those lowly people. She doesn't think about how your Majesty will blame Wang Yi after the matter. She also doesn't care about what great things Wang Yi will do. If it were up to me, it would be fine if a woman just stayed in the inner residence and did some work. Wang Fei is a living example. She has been spoiled rotten by Wang Yi. Hearing this, Chen Jing also snorted and joked, "So since ancient times, women who are too beautiful are also materials that bring disaster to the country and the people. This cannot be blamed on Wang Yi. Then how does Brother Dao plan to deal with this matter?" Being asked about the key matter, Dao Hanshan's face immediately turned cold. His fingers quickly tapped on the table. The tapping sound only stopped after the time it took to brew a cup of tea. This matter can't be left to a woman. Dao Hanshan's elbow was on the small table between two round chairs. He leaned close to Chen Jing and said in a low voice, "People like you and me, who are not ranked in front of Wang Yi and Wang Fei like Brother Xie and Brother Shu, if we are thinking about the future, what should we care about the most? If Wang Yi does great things, you and I can at least become high officials of the court. But if Wang Yi does not do great things, I fear we will not even be able to escape." Chen Jing nodded repeatedly. Brother Dao is right. You and I are following His Highness for two reasons. Firstly, we value His Highness's character. Secondly, isn't it because of this? If we do not have any selfishness, we will become bodhisattvas. Yes, I believe that it is not just you and me. Everyone thinks the same. Wang Yi is a benevolent and righteous person. He submits to your Majesty's suspicions and is determined to resist for the sake of loyalty and righteousness. Your Highness's character is truly admirable, and it also makes you and me, his followers, even more unswervingly loyal." Hearing this, Chen Jing nodded in agreement. Dao Hanshan then said, "There are some things that Wang Yi cannot do. If we subordinates do not do them, the matter will develop in an uncontrollable direction in the end. So we must think of ways to help Wang Yi succeed. Wang Yi is focused on your majesty right now, but if Wang Yi is forced onto that path, Wang Yi will not be able to resist. Chen Jing nodded again. He agreed with Dao Hanshan's thoughts, but hearing Dao Hanshan's words, he had a bad feeling and felt a chill run down his spine. Dao Hanshan carefully lowered his voice. Wang Fei's interference in this matter will not be of any good use. If you want Wang Yi to agree to suppress the rebellion of the people of Danfu County and divert attention, you must give Wang Yi a reason for his approval. For example, hatred. Brother Dao, you mean? Dao Hanshan made a hand gesture by his neck. You said you want a princess consort? Chen Jing also made a hand gesture. Seeing Dao Hanshan nod, he immediately shivered and the hairs on his back stood on end. This is not appropriate, is it? Wang Fei is Wang Yi's most important person. If Wang Yi knows, even if you are thinking for Wang Yi, I fear that Wang Yi will only be furious and will not appreciate it. Dao Hanshan smiled. How many beauties are there in the world? In the future, when Wang Yi ascends to the throne, there will naturally be beauties in the world to serve him. Do you have to worry about not being able to choose someone better than the Qin clan? Also, when Wang Yi sits on the throne, many thoughts will naturally change and he will not care about the current governor. He will miss Wang Fei, but he will not take his anger out on me. When he said this, Dao Hanshan whispered a few words into Chen Jing's ear. Seeing Chen Jing nod, he continued, also, what is there to worry about? Doesn't Wang Fei have a ready-made scapegoat by her side? When Wang Yi believes that the people of Danfu County killed Wang Fei, with Wang Yi's temper and his deep affection for Wang Fei, not to mention quelling the rebellion, Wang Yi can even slaughter the entire city. At that time, it will be the best of both worlds. Chen Jing hesitated for a moment and then slowly nodded. He said, Brother Dao's words are reasonable. Then you have already decided on this method? Dao Hanshan smiled and did not immediately answer. At this time, Qin Yining's expression had changed from the initial anxiety and worry to calm. She stood and slowly walked to the window. She quietly pushed the window open a crack and carefully observed the situation in the courtyard. Today was the middle of the 7th month. A bright moon hung high in the sky and illuminated the silent courtyard. Perhaps due to the difference between men and women, there were no guards outside the courtyard she was in. There were only shadows moving in front of the courtyard door. Qin Yining found it slightly funny. She had already come to where Pang Xiao's subordinates were. Even though Dao Hanshan did not approve of her cutting, he would respect her as a Wang Fei. Why did she need to be so careful? She pushed open the door and walked into the courtyard to carefully observe the surroundings. Seeing Qin Yining go out of the door, the young man quickly followed. The courtyard was spacious. The night wind blew the strands of hair on Qin Yining's temples. She could smell the thick scent of dried blood on her body. This was also the reason why Qin Yining was on guard.